Dragon Ball Legends. If you ever wondered how a game with such potential, a game that was seen by many players at the time as the Dokkan killer, turned out the way it did, well, you came to the right place. This is the first episode of a very long series where I'll be covering the entire history of the mobile game Dragon Ball Legends. So everything began in March 2018, when Dragon Ball Legends was announced by the man himself in a Google event, which sounds so random, but it was announced here to showcase Google's cloud networking and how fast and stable it made Legends PvP, even if the players were 5,000 miles apart. So that was our first look at Legends, and what followed after just hyped the game so much that people genuinely thought that this game was about to end Dokkan's career, and honestly, it really looked like it was going to. The game was in 3D and aesthetically more appealing than Dokkan, especially for the masses. It featured a new original character that was designed by Toriyama himself, which coupled with the upcoming release of the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie and all of the rumors about Yamoshi, the original Super Saiyan god, just made the new character more appealing, even though Charlotte had nothing to do with Yamoshi. And the crazy part is that it was said to us that Legends was apparently built on players' feedback from Dokkan, which meant that this game was essentially what players wished Dokkan could be, and the fact that the game was going to have an international release only proved that point, so the hype was through the roof. And we all expected this game to be absolutely amazing. The game was officially out May 5th for the players who pre-registered for the game, and let me tell you, the game looked like it was going to live up to the hype. It had so many cool features that we wish Dokkan had, like skip tickets, no box space, what looked like a better dupe system at the time, and much more. And if you joined the game before July 1st, you were given 2000 Chrono Crystals, 100 Z power of the hero Goku, 100 Z power of the Force form hero Frieza, and the Goku outfit for Charlotte. So this was actually the perfect time to reroll, and that's what I did. I rerolled for the Red Sparking Super Saiyan Goku, since he was the only Super Saiyan unit and had a cool ultimate arts card, but your best bet at the time was to either reroll for Purple Vegeta or just for as many Sparkins as you possibly could, since those were just the best units in the game, and by far. I also remember players being pretty hyped by the tutorial, as it showed us characters that we didn't have in the game at the time, like Broly and Trunks, so we were expecting them very soon. And now that I think about it, those exact characters were never released. They're still exclusive to the tutorial, which is pretty interesting. 2 days later, and the first banner was out. It featured 5 new Sparking characters. The headliner Red Super Saiyan Goku, who was contrary to what you would think, actually probably the worst Sparking on that banner. Like, he wasn't bad, he still gapped every non-Sparking unit in the game, but the banner just had better Sparkins. Like, his design was kind of weird, he held strike cards but was a blast character, and gained additional blast damage after an allied Krillin died. So to get the most out of this guy, you had to run him with a Krillin card. But the only Krillin card the game had on release was the hero Krillin, who honestly wasn't great even by heroes card standards. But since he was the only Sparking with an ultimate skill, I'm sure I wasn't the only one who rerolled for him, which was honestly a pretty bad move. Not only because he wasn't the best Sparking in the banner, but also because he was the first one you got for free by ranking up to level 20. Purple Vegeta was seen alongside Green Piccolo as the best Sparking on the banner, since he had a very high blast base stat and held 2 blast cards, and his kit also gave him a lot of additional blast damage, so he was a pretty well designed unit. Green Piccolo was by far the best tank in the game. The guy had ridiculous defensive stats and healing on his main ability, and he also held a strike and blast card, meaning you could put him on any team without hurting your arts too much. Blue Pen was kind of something. At first people saw her as the worst Sparking on the banner, but as people got a hang of the game, yeah, it was clear that she was probably the best unit in the game. But yeah, she was a support type unit that gave all allies 30% damage amp from the start of battle, while also boosting her own key recovery, and could draw a special art card on her main ability, as well as reducing the enemy's key recovery and card draw speed. The reason why some players saw her as broken and the best unit in the game was because of a mechanic called double dashing. You see, back then, you could recover key and draw new cards while dashing, so players would quickly dash in between arts cards to recover key and draw more cards. It wasn't really something difficult to execute per se, you just needed like the right timing, and the thing with Pan is that she had additional key recovery at the start of battle, meaning that with some luck you could combo almost infinitely with her, which for sure was broken. But it took some time for people to figure all of that out, so on release, Purple Vegeta and Green Piccolo were still seen as the best cards in the game, but yeah, as time went on, it was clear that Blue Pan was probably the best card. If he knew how to utilize that mechanic. YOLO Paikuhan was very good. He had a main ability that upped the cost of the strike and blast cards of the enemy, was a strike unit who held 2 strike cards, while also getting additional strike damage against units who had the Freeze as Force tag. And the quote-unquote best unit in the game had that tag, and was purple. So Paikuhan was his biggest counter, making the PvP meta on release probably one of the most balanced one ever, since every sparking unit like countered each other. Like PvP on release was probably the peak of PvP. Everybody had the same equipments, almost no one had fully leveled characters, and you could generally just bring out anything you wanted into PvP. Like hero characters were viable at the time. Okay, sure, you had to fight like a bot every now and then, since the game didn't have enough players during its pre-release, and those bots had higher level caps than the one we had in game, but they were pretty dumb, so it wasn't that big of a problem, and you could deal with them. Okay, actually PvP maybe wasn't sunshine and roses on release, because I just remembered that PvP was also filled with cheaters. They were abusing some sort of bug with the game that allowed them to instantly win any PvP match, which was very annoying. Like imagine waiting and going into a PvP match just for your opponent to disconnect with a win. Like this was just crazy. I even found footage of someone utilizing that bug at the time, as you can see. May 10, and the first scout battle was out, an event that you could clear 5 times a day and where you could farm Z power of the hero credit card, something that was actually pretty good for the dumbasses like me who rolled for the red spark in Goku. 3 days later and the shops were finally open. Do you believe that? There was a short period of time in Legends where you just couldn't buy chrono crystals, like you couldn't give money to Doshi, like no wonder PvP peaked on release. But yeah, the shop came with some sales that honestly I don't really remember being anything special, but better than what Dokkan had to offer at the time. The shop also came with a special starter pack deal that gave you 1100 chrono crystals and 600 Z power for the red spark in Super Saiyan Goku. 2 days later and they put a notice in the news saying that they have found the cheaters in PvP abusing the connection bug and that they will have their PvP rank reset to 0, but that the next time a player is found using that bug, he'll get banned. So this was kind of a warning. The next day and they released another scout battle, this time for the Yamcha hero card. I don't remember this one being anything special. I don't even think I farmed him. Those events only gave you 100 Z power a day, and this was before the star system rework, so it took a lot of Z power to star up characters past the 3rd star. Another day later and we had the first story event, Raditz Attack, where we could farm Z power for the blue extreme Raditz card, arguably one of the best bench units in the game, since he gave HP to the Saiyan tag. This event also brought the first set of real equipments. One was restricted to the green type, so it was clearly made for Green Piccolo, giving him blast defense, blast attack, and special move damage. The bronze one could be used by anyone and gave base health, as well as strike and blast defenses, so pretty good actually at the time. And the other silver equipment was for Saiyan tag characters, and gave strike defense, strike attack, and additional damage against characters from the Super Warrior tag, so actually a pretty decent equipment too. By the way, the special move damage equipments were bugged on release. The buffs were way higher than what they were supposed to be, so Green Piccolo's special move did so much damage with his equip. The next week, they dropped another scout battle, this time for the hero Tien. Just like Yamcha's, nothing crazy, and I don't even think I farmed him. This would be the equivalent of Dokkan's first strike event characters, and honestly compared to them, those hero cards were pretty useless. The month ended with the official global release of the game, which came with its own celebration. The most notable thing from that celebration was the release of the first Sparking Guaranteed banner, and the best part was that the banner was actually free. You could obtain a ticket by clearing the global release campaign missions, which from what I remember weren't anything difficult, so this was essentially just a free Sparking ticket. They even added an additional 450 chrono crystals to the original pre-release rewards, which obviously was very good. This is also the celebration that started the first season of PvP, with the first space-time duel. At the time, PvP only had season or battle rank rewards, and your end of season rank rewards, no group ranking or daily rewards. And the crazy part is that the PvP rewards didn't actually improve as much as you would think after all these years. Like, they're pretty much the same. Like, how is that even possible? PvP is like 10 times more toxic now, and it doesn't even give you twice as many rewards as it did on release? Toshi bro, what is this? Anyways, with PvP came the rare medals that you could exchange into the shop for various rewards, including the new Sparking Spirit Bomb Goku. From what I can remember, he wasn't anything crazy on his own. He was just like a tank type unit with a Z ability that gave strike defense to Saiyan tag characters, but he held 2 blast cards, and his main ability caused enemies to receive more blast damage. So this guy was actually very good alongside Purple Vegeta. Like, they synergized pretty well together. I also remember Spirit Bomb Goku's special move having a chance to feign the enemy, while also reducing their blast defense. So you could pull off some pretty nasty combos with him and Purple Vegeta, who was, like I said earlier, a blast damage monster. The only problem with Goku is that those rare medals were, well, pretty rare, so just getting Goku at 3 stars was a pretty difficult task, and at 3 dupe his stats were pretty low. They also released a new story event at the same time, this time for the EX Nappa. He wasn't as useful as EX Raditz, but that event came with some new equipments. The bronze equip gave decent stats to Super Warrior tag units, one of the silver equip was for Chaozu, who actually got a scout battle event that same day, and it gave him additional self-destruct damage. I do remember some funny themes being built with it, but nothing game changing. The other silver equip was for red characters and gave strike, defense, attack and special move damage, so definitely something you could put on the red Super Saiyan Goku. And like I said, the additional special move damage was actually bugged on release, so this was just like crazy on him. Like his blue cards did so much damage with that equip. The last silver equip was for Piccolo and was pretty good. It gave him strike attack, blast defense and ki recovery, so definitely a very good equip for Piccolo, the best tank the game had. They also added the Zenin EXP bonus battles the same day. You could clear those once a day and the rewards were pretty good for the time, so they were must-dos for every player, especially the EXP one, if you wanted to level up characters quickly. The month of June started with the first ever Legends Rising banner, and I guess the first ever high banner in the game. It featured a new legendary Super Saiyan Broly, the card we had all been waiting for ever since we saw it in the tutorial mode, and Broly was just a complete monster. That guy was by far and away the best unit in the game. He gapped everything and was Legends' first meta shifter. Crazy to think that not even a week into the global release and the meta had already shifted, but I guess that's Legends for you. This new Broly was a strike type unit who had one of the highest base ki restore speed in the game, held a strike card, did more damage against Goku's enemies, and reduced the ki recovery of units once he entered the battlefield, which coupled with the fact that his special move had a 30% chance of fating the enemy, while also reducing the enemy's strike defense, yeah, the guy was looking insane. But what really made him stand out was his green card. He could force switch characters, which was just insane at the time. Like that guy's only counter at the time was Green Piccolo, but with that green card, he could just force switch him out and kill the rest of the team. So that guy was just a monster. The same day, the game got the update 1.7.0, an update that completely changed PvP. It basically killed double dashing as well as pan. You couldn't restore ki or draw new cards while doing tap attacks, tap shots or boost moves anymore. This change was seen by many players as a very big mistake and a step in the wrong direction, since it practically killed skill expression in the game. Now it was all a matter of who had the team with the most stats, which is essentially what Legends is now. Like there's only so much you can do to outplay your opponent in PvP, but at the same time, Pen was like 1 or 2 ki recovery upgrades from being an actual infinite combo character, so this update was unfortunately necessary. I do think it could have been handled better by maybe just removing the ability to recover ki or draw card while dashing and not both, but it is what it is. 4 days later and the game held a many thanks campaign, so I guess thank the players for all the support they gave to the game. And when you look at the rewards, it really makes you think, what the hell happens in the game? The whole campaign gave 2000 Chrono Crystals, and the missions that gave those Chrono Crystals were pretty easy. All you had to do was level up a couple of characters, which sure took some time, but wasn't anything near as bad as whatever hell you have to do now to get 2000 Chrono Crystals in that game. We also had the second space-time duel that same day, which was, as you would guess, completely dominated by Broly and his new Saiyan team. The next day, and the game got a new update, which added stages to the Saibamen bonus battles. Those new stages just gave more Zenis and better training equipments, which was definitely great considering the many tank campaign missions. That update also added the horde mode for the first chapter of the story mode. And bro, I remember those new horde mode stages being pretty difficult. Like they were definitely challenging, especially if you wanted to clear all of the missions. But it also meant that we now had another way to farm Chrono Crystals, which was obviously very good. A week later and the game had reached 10 million downloads worldwide. And to celebrate that milestone, they held a super login bonus campaign, where they not only greatly improved the login bonus rewards, but also upped the number of choices you could make every day from 1 to 3. Because yes, if you didn't know, back then you had to choose your login bonus reward for the next day. But during that campaign, you could choose 3 different rewards instead of just 1, meaning you could pick the Chrono Crystals and something else. Personally, I remember picking the Chrono Crystals, obviously, the skip tickets, and then whatever else I needed that day. But yeah, this was pretty insane since it lasted 7 days, and if you logged in all week, you were able to get up to 1000 Chrono Crystals. Like bro, Legends was so generous on release. Really don't understand what happened. A day later and it was already time for a new banner, featuring 3 new sparking characters. The new yellow final form Frieza was clearly a counter of purple Vegeta. He was a strike type unit that had additional strike damage against Saiyan tag units, and additional damage against Frieza's force tag units. So against purple Vegeta, his strike cards had an additional 35% damage, which was just crazy. Then his Z ability gave strike and blast defense to the yellow type, so he could actually be paired with yellow Pycon. He also debuffed the enemies with his green and blue cards, making them take more strike damage. So even though he only held one strike card, he was still a pretty well designed unit, and definitely one of the best Sparking units in the game. Yellow Gohan was also a phenomenal strike character. That guy had so many buffs in his kit, it was crazy. First off, his blue card buffed his strike damage by 20%. Then his main ability gave him 50% strike damage. 50%, this was crazy, even if it was just for 15 timer counts. And then when you couple that with the rest of his kit, it was just so insane. Like bro, he had an additional 20% strike damage when your whole team was alive, which turned into an additional 35% strike damage if an allied Piccolo was killed during battle. So yeah, you had to run him with Piccolo, but the best tank in the game was Green Piccolo. So it's not like this was a handicap or something, like Goku's Krillin condition, which in his case was kind of a drawback, since Krillin had no top tier card at the time. Also, Gohan's Z ability gave max base health to Hybrid Saiyan's units, so a pretty decent Z ability actually, but not something we could really fully utilize at the time, since this was the second Hybrid Saiyan Sparking in the game, so yeah. But that type had the potential to be very good in the future. Sparking Ginyu was probably the weakest out of the three, like he was a tank type unit, his blue and green cards debuffed the enemies, making them take more damage, gained additional blast damage with another Frieza's Force tag battle member, and his main ability gave him the body change art card, which from what I remember wasn't anything crazy. Like to start off, it was pretty hard to pull off, since it wasn't something that you could proc from a distance, you needed to be close to the enemy, and it didn't really do much damage since the guy was a tank unit. Like sure, it inflicted bleed to the enemy, but I don't know, I don't really remember that bleed damage doing much, bro. Like it really wasn't anything crazy. And like I said, it was a very hard card to pull off. Maybe I was just bad at the game, but to me it seemed like very hard to actually proc that card, since you need to be like very close to the enemy. But one thing I do remember being very interesting about that guy was the fact that he held a green card. I'm pretty sure this was the first unit to hold a green card, meaning you could draw more green cards with him on your team and just buff your characters to Oblivion with some luck. His Z ability also gave health to Ginyu Force units, but that tag at the time wasn't very good, but I do remember the Ginyu Force team getting pretty damn good at some point in time, so we'll probably come back to them if I'm not mistaken. We also had a new story event the same day, where we could farm Z power of the hero Red Captain Ginyu. His Z ability gave critical chance to the Ginyu Force tag, which was very good, but that was pretty much it. The rest of his kit wasn't anything crazy, but his event came with some new equipments. The bronze equip was restricted to the yellow type and gave base health, strike and blast defenses, so definitely not bad, but not really what the yellow type Sparkins needed at the time. They were mostly just very offensive units, so more offense would have been better on them. The Krillin silver equip was restricted to units of the hero rarity. It gave health, strike attack or defense, and blast attack or blast defense, so this equip was definitely there to make those hero Ginyu Force units more viable in the current meta, but was also an indirect buff to Red Super Saiyan Goku, since the hero Krillin was now a little bit better with that equip. Not by much, but a little better. The following silver equipments were basically unique equips for each member of the Ginyu Force. Gildo's equipment gave him base health and blast attack and strike defenses. Rakum's equip gave him base health, strike attack and strike defense. Jis's equip gave him base health, strike attack and blast defense. Birder's equip gave him base health, blast attack and gauge recovery speed, which was actually interesting, since his main ability also gave him vanish gauge recovery speed. Ginyu's equip gave him damage, base strike and blast defenses. And the Ginyu Force equipment could be used on any Ginyu Force type unit and give strike attack, blast attack and additional damage against Saiyan type units. So the Ginyu Force team with all of those equips could actually be a viable team at the time, but the team had no yellow character, so they were vulnerable to purple characters, and most of the best teams at the time featured purple Spark and Vegeta. They also released at the same time scout battles for Birder and Guldo and teased the scout battles of Rakum and Jace. We also had the update 1.8.0 that same day, which added some pretty cool features, like the orange indicator to point out that an equipment slot has a high percentage, added more story mode chapters, some bug fixes, some changes to the battle system. Apparently before that update you could dodge strike ultimate skills by doing a backstep. So if I understand it correctly, feel free to correct me in the comments down below if I'm wrong, you could dodge the ultimate skill of Red Super Saiyan Goku, for example, by taking a step back, which just sounds so insane. I had no idea you could do something like that at the time, but yeah, with that update it wasn't possible anymore. Now the special moves could only be dodged with a vanishing step, but most importantly, that update upped the level cap from 600 to 1000, which unlocked a new soul board, meaning it was time to grind a new type of souls. They then added a hard mode to the Krillin Scout Battle event. It just gave more Z power and souls. But I do remember one of the missions of that hard mode being pretty damn hard. Like you had to beat Krillin with only a Krillin character, meaning you had to beat the event with a hero Krillin as your only battle member, which like I already said, was a pretty difficult mission and took me many tries. A couple of days later and we had a new campaign, where this time we could get various rewards including Z power of the new Spark in Ginyu, simply by strengthening the Hero Ginyu Force units. So yeah, that was very good. The next day and we got the scout battles of Raccoon and Jace to help players with that new campaign. It was also already time for a third space-time duel, which this time around came with bonus drop rewards. You could get Z power of the Extreme Blue Goku, and a new golden equipment for Broly by playing PvP. I actually remember some people 7-starring the Extreme Blue Goku from that space-time duel. And the new Broly equipment was the first gold equipment in the game, so you can guess that it was pretty strong. It gave Broly blast defense, special move damage, and ultimate damage. So he was now tankier than ever and could do even more damage, which was just crazy. The month ended with a teaser of the next banner, and it looked like Future Trunks and Super Saiyan Vegeta were coming into Legends. The month of July started with the second Ultra Space Time banner, featuring the long-awaited Super Saiyan Vegeta and Super Saiyan Trunks. I remember saving all of my Chrono Crystals for Trunks ever since I saw him in the tutorial mode, but unfortunately not only was he a tank, him and Vegeta were red type tanks, meaning they pretty much got clapped by Broly, who was still the most used character in PvP at the time. Red Super Saiyan Vegeta was a strength-oriented tank type unit, and from what I can remember that guy wasn't really that good, and I kind of understand why now. Like his stats were not only low, but also at the same time didn't last long. His special move made enemies take more strike damage for 15 timer counts, his main ability reduced the cost of his strike art cards by 15 for 10 timer counts, and his unique ability gave him 20% strike damage for 20 timer counts from the start of battle. Like bro, 20% strike damage for 20 timer counts is crazy, because by the time he got his main ability out, that buff was pretty much gone. At least his green card healed him like 15% HP and cured abnormal conditions, which I guess was decent for a tank, but then his Z ability gave strike attack and defense to the red type. Like, the buff was good, but like I already said, the red type wasn't in a very good spot at the time, so yeah, you can guess that his Z ability didn't see much use at the time. Red Super Saiyan Trunks was a little bit better from what I remember, like he was a defensive unit too, but wasn't restricted to a specific art type. He just gained damage against Frieza's 4 stag units, his green card gave him blast and strike damage, his main ability gave him a special arts card, and he had one of the best abilities at the time, cover change, meaning that he had 40% damage reduction until the end of a combo and cover changing, and then also gained more damage at the same time. So yeah, that guy was not bad on paper, but for some reason he just didn't feel that strong in game. I don't know if it was because of Broly or the fact that he didn't really have like an optimal team at the time. Like the Hybrid Saiyan tag wasn't fully fleshed out yet, and with his Z ability giving blast attack to Hybrid Saiyans, he was clearly meant to be run on like a full Hybrid Saiyans team. But he was still good, just not as good as I would have hoped for. That banner also came with 2 new Android units, Android 19 and 20. They weren't anything special at the time, but they introduced the Android tag into the game, with some pretty decent Z abilities, so that tag had the potential to be very good in the future. They also both had a green card that absorbed key blast attacks, which was something new and definitely cool. This banner also came with a new campaign, where we could get various rewards by clearing daily missions, and one of those rewards was a free ticket, and with 7 of those tickets, you could do a guaranteed sparking single on the new banner, which was insane, since they gave us 14 of those tickets in total, so we were guaranteed 2 free sparking characters. But the problem is that the banner also featured Pan, which from what I remember was pretty much dead since the last PvP update, and I remember some players being very mad pulling her on their ticket summons, but that wasn't even the worst of it. I also remember those daily missions being bugged, so some players couldn't even clear them, which was definitely very frustrating. Thankfully they fixed the issue fairly quickly, a couple of days later, and it was time for the 4th Super Space Time duel, and this time it gave Z power of the red Extreme Krillin, which I guess wasn't bad, since even though I said that the red type was in a bad spot, I remember players still running a mono red team at the time, with this guy and red sparking Goku, and obviously the more stats you had, the better that team would be, since that was the whole point. Get as much stats as possible with all of those crazy monocolor Z abilities. This space-time duel also came with a new gold equipment, this time for Charlotte. It gave him base strike and blast defenses, base health and base key restore speed, so a pretty insane equip for Charlotte, like definitely very good on him. We also had a new scout battle for the yellow hero Goku, which was I guess good if you were a new player and needed a bench unit for your Saiyan team. A week later and it was time for another Legends Rising banner, themed around movie sagas, featuring 5 new units, and honestly from what I remember, they were pretty forgettable. Like I remember them being good but nothing crazy, so most players just skipped their banners waiting for something more interesting, especially since there were rumors at the time that a new Super Gogeta was on the way, and sooner than we think. Purple Sparking Turles was a range type unit, and on paper he wasn't bad. His main ability reduced the cost of his blast cards, which was very good, since those blast arts cards were very expensive. Then his green card restored 10% of his own health, while also giving him 1 to 3 effects randomly: blast damage, key recovery, or vanishing ghost recovery speed. Like, at best you could get all of those 3 effects at once, but you could also just end up getting the vanishing ghost recovery buff. So you can guess that this green card wasn't very consistent. And the fact that it was quite expensive, like 30 key, didn't help either. But the worst part was probably his unique ability. It only gave him an additional 10% blast damage against units from the Sun family tag. Like, bro, by that point he was just a weaker purple Vegeta. But I guess since his ability buffed the purple color, he was still alright paired with purple Vegeta. Like, you could run them together and they were actually not bad. Purple Sparking Goku was probably the best card here. He was a tank type unit. His special move, the one-hand Spirit Bomb, boosted his critical rate for 20 timer counts, which coupled with the rest of his kit was just insane. Like, his green cards buffed the damage of his next blue card. And the interesting part here is that the buff stacked up to 3 times. So after 3 green cards, his next blue card had an additional 120% damage, as well as a 70% chance of fainting the enemy. And his main ability gave him a blue card while restoring his health. So his blue cards were literal nukes, bro. They did so much damage. Then his unique ability gave him 30% strike damage when he was the last battle member alive, so he could come in clutch at the end of a fight. Also, just like Turles, his Z ability buffed units of the purple color, so you could build a mono purple team with this guy, Turles, and like Red Super Saiyan Goku to cover for the yellow type. Green Sparking Cooler was probably the weakest out of the 3. He was a range type unit that held 2 strike cards, so we were already off to a bad start. Then outside of his Z ability, he didn't have any sort of blast damage. His unique ability only buffed his blue cards, but he had no way to draw one. Like, sure, I guess his main ability gave him 50 key and increased his card draw speed, but by the time his main ability was up, his unique ability buff was long gone, so that was a weird design. At least his green card was very good. It inflicted bleed to the enemy, destroyed 3 of their cards, reduced their card draw speed, and had a 20% chance of fainting them. So yeah, that green card was packed. But he didn't really have a team at the time. Like, the sagas from the movie's tag wasn't fully fleshed out yet, and still needed some units to actually become a meta-relevant tag. Green Extreme Turles was literally just a worse version of the new purple Turles. And Extreme Red Vegeta was a better designed version of the Red Sparking Vegeta. Like, he was a melee type unit that gained strike damage, and buffs that didn't expire in 2 seconds. But his stats were lower than the Sparking Vegeta, so he was still worse than him. We also had the Scout battle for the Hero Green Frieza that day. Honestly, by that point, those were just worthless. Unless Frieza was like your favorite character, or you wanted to try out like a mono green type team for fun. Another week later, and they brought back the first Ultra Space Time Summon banner, but this time with 3 guaranteed Sparking multis. Like, the first 3 multis on the banner gave you guaranteed Sparking tickets, and Green Piccolo and Purple Vegeta were still top tier units. So it generally wasn't a bad idea to summon on that banner. Like, you had a 40% chance of pulling something good every multi. It was also time for a new Space Time duel, this time given Z power of the Extreme Yellow Trunks, who I guess was okay, but the important thing here was the new gold equip, and it was an equipment for Hybrid Saiyan units, and it gave them blast attack, base strike defense, and more crit. So kind of unfortunate that it didn't give strike damage, since I'm pretty sure Yellow Sparking Gohan was still the best Hybrid Saiyan unit in the game, followed by Red Super Saiyan Trunks, but that equip was still very good on both of them nonetheless. Actually, it was good on every Hybrid Saiyan unit. They also updated the Raditz event with some new hard mode stages, and 2 new gold equipments. The first gold equip was for Hybrid Saiyan units, and it gave them base strike attack, base blast attack, and base key recovery speed. So definitely a very good equipment. And the other equipment was for the purple type, and it gave special move damage, base blast attack, and additional damage against Piccolo. So I guess this was literally just an equipment to counter Green Piccolo. Like, was he really that good that they had to make a whole equip for the purple type to do even more damage to him? That's just crazy. Like, I remember him being like insane. Like, he was definitely like the best tank in the game, but I just didn't realize like how good he was for him to do something like that. But yeah, you can guess that this was a very good equip for all of the purple Sparking units, like Vegeta and the new Goku and Turles. The month ended with a new Ultra Space Time banner, featuring 4 new Sparking units, who were all very good. Purple Android 17 was a tank type unit. His blue card was pretty strong. It reduced the enemy's strike defense and had a 40% chance of giving them the paralysis status effect. But the range of that blue card was pretty low, so you had to get close to the enemy before using it. So I guess it was only fair for it to be that strong. Then his main ability gave you a blue card and reduced the enemy's blast defense. So the guy was a tank that debuffed the enemies, so that was already looking good. But then he had a green card that basically gave him a barrier, nullifying enemies' attack, excluding stuff like Rising Rush and I think some special ultimate arts card. So you can guess that this was pretty broken. And if you used it close to the enemy or to block an enemy's strike card, it knocked them back, and you could then combo them. So this was a pretty strong green card, but it had to be balanced somehow. So its base cost was pretty high. It costed like 35 key to use, and then that cost increased by 5 with each use, up to 50 key. Then he had had 25% blast damage when all of your team was alive, and had a cover change giving him 40% damage reduction for the duration of the combo blocked, and then gave him 20% strike damage. So that guy had a pretty loaded kit. Like, he had so much, and was definitely one of the best tanks in the game, if not the best one. Like, there were still debates whether this guy was better than Green Piccolo or not, but everyone pretty much agreed that they were at least on the same tier. Oh, and his Z ability also buffed the purple type. I have no idea why they buffed that type so much, but I guess we'll understand it later down the line. Yellow Android 18 was a strike type unit. Her blue card increased her key recovery, her main ability gave her a special ultimate card, an ultimate card that actually increased the attacked enemy's substitution count by 5, so if the attacked enemy wasn't dead, he was going to get benched for a while if the enemy ever decided to switch him out. So that was good. Then her green card not only gave her strike damage, but also reduced the cost of her strike cards. So this was an insane green card to have on a melee type unit. Then she had additional key recovery with an Android unit on her team, and 20% strike damage against a Saiyan unit, which were essentially all of the most used units in PvP at the time. So that girl was insane. A direct counter to all of the purple Saiyan units, and they literally released 2 of them that month. So she was definitely one of the best sparking units in the game. Yellow Horde Virus Goku was actually a very controversial release. Some people saw him as one of the best sparking card in the game, and other as complete trash. I personally remember pulling him and honestly being pretty disappointed. Like, he had a unique ability that made him lose 5% of his health for each arts card used. So that guy was on borrowed time on the field. But now that I look back, he was actually a well-designed unit, you could say. He was like a high-risk, high-reward type of card, but I sucked at the game, so it only made sense for me to not like that card, because you just weren't allowed to make a mistake with him. But if you played him perfectly, he was pretty cracked. His blue and green cards buffed his damage, then his main ability could be activated after 5 timer counts. Like, this was the quickest main ability in the game, I think. Like, 5 timer counts and it was up. And then it gave him more damage, while also increasing his arts card draw speed by 1. And when you couple that with his other unique ability, that reduced the cost of all of his arts card by 10 for 20 timer counts, yeah, that guy could literally kill a unit with 1 combo straight from the start of battle if you're skilled enough. But the problem is that after 20 timer counts, that guy was literally just trash, bro. Like, he was literally useless. So for most players, he was just seen as a bad card. But yeah, I guess if you had the skills for it, that guy was definitely good. But you had to be careful. Blue Krillin was pretty good. Like, he was a blast type unit, his blue card buffed his crit rate, his main ability restored his allies' health, while also completely stopping the enemy's key recovery for 5 timer counts. So this was pretty interesting, and could definitely come in handy in the right scenario. Then his green card was the Solar Flare, flashing the enemies and then causing them to receive more blast damage. This was like Android 17's blue card, so a pretty hard card to pull off, since you had to be close to the enemy, but as you can guess, it was a very strong green card. He then gained damage for 10 timer counts each time you switched characters, and had additional base health recovery speed with a Goku's card as a battle member. Like, the additional health recovery speed wasn't anything crazy, but at least it made it so that he had some sort of synergy with like Red Spark and Goku, who finally got like a good Krillin card, but his Z ability buffed the blue colors, so I guess they didn't really synergize that well in terms of Z abilities, but he was ironically a good bench unit for Blue Broly now that I think about it. The month of August started a new story event, where you could get Z power of the Red Extreme Android 19, which was definitely good, since the Android team was genuinely one of the best teams in the game with the recent release of Android 17 and 18. That new story event also came with some new equipments. The bronze equipment gave base strike attack, blast attack, and special move damage, but each slot also reduced your health, so it was kind of like a double-edged sword kind of equipment, and probably only good on Hard Virus Goku, since he was like the glass cannon unit. One of the silver equipment could only be used on Vegeta's cards, and it gave blast defense, base strike attack, and special move damage. So this was clearly made for the Red Spark and Vegeta. The other silver equip was for Android tag units, and it gave them base strike defense, blast attack, and health. So definitely a good equipment. The gold equip was also for Android tag units, and it gave them base strike attack, base key store recovery speed, and additional damage against Super Saiyan characters. And I'm pretty sure Broly, who was still very dominant in PvP, had a Super Saiyan tag. So this was huge for the Android team. We then the same day had the first ever character balance changes. That update gave us so much hope at the time. Like, we genuinely thought that Dragon Ball Legends was just going to be the greatest mobile game to ever exist. Like, I've personally never seen something like that in a gacha game before. They basically took the top 5 least used characters in PvP of each rarity and straight up just buff them. Like straight up, you didn't have to grind anything. You just had to level up your characters to a certain class, which you probably already had done anyways, since those were old units for the most part. Like those buffs were essentially just given for free, and some of them were actually pretty significant too. Pan got a new unique ability, giving her whole team an additional 30% damage for 25 timer counts from the start of battle. Like that's pretty huge. Like 30% damage to the whole team. Like she was now an actual proper support type unit, and I do remember her being pretty damn good once they started buffing her tags. Ginyu got a new unique ability, giving him 40% strike damage for 30 timer counts from the start of battle, which was also huge because that guy really liked damage. Like I do remember that buff pushing the Ginyu Force team a little bit. One hand Spirit Bomb Goku got a new unique ability, giving his blue cards an additional 80% damage after 2 of his allies were defeated. This was just insane, since like I already said previously, his blue cards were literal nukes, bro. So them getting even more damage was just crazy. Turles got a new unique ability, giving him 30% damage reduction for 35 timer counts from the start of battle, which was huge since the guy was pretty squishy. So this definitely made his green card more valuable since it restored health, and they also buffed the Vanishing Ghost recovery speed from his green card. It went from 30 to 50%. Like nothing crazy, but combined with his new unique ability, yeah, it was good. So that guy was basically a tankier purple Vegeta now. Cooler got a new unique ability, giving him 25% blast damage per defeated enemy when he entered the battlefield, which meant that if you switch that guy in at the end of a fight, he could get up to an additional 50% blast damage, which was a pretty significant buff. But he obviously had to defeat enemies for that ability to do anything. So the biggest buff was actually to his green card. It now destroyed 3 arts cards instead of 1, and decreased the enemy's arts card draw speed. Like bro, destroying 3 cards or reducing card draw speed was like a nasty combo. Android 19 and 20 also got some pretty significant buffs. Like their green card lasted longer now, so it was actually easier now to absorb like a Ki Blast attack with them. And their Ki Blast absorption cover change could now be used 2 times in a fight instead of just once. So actually like yeah, that that was actually pretty good. And all of that was free. Like think about it. We also had a new Skull Battle event for the Hero Green Gohan, and with how limited the Hybrid Saiyan tag was, he was one of the only units in the game buffing that tag, so I guess you didn't have much choice but to farm him if you wanted to build like an actual Hybrid Saiyan team. We then had the update 1.11.0, the update that added the second part of the story event, increased the maximum equipment storage from 200 to 250. Skip tickets can now give you EXP, which was definitely huge combined with the changes that they made to the Cyberman bonus battle events. The first chapters now costed 1 energy instead of 5, and the second chapters could now be played for an unlimited amount of times, meaning you could now easily level up characters using skip tickets on the bonus battle EXP event. A couple of days later, and they fixed some bugs, with one of them being pretty interesting. Apparently, if 2 players were facing each other, and that one picked Trunks as their first fighter, while the enemy chose Frieza as their first fighter, the battle just wouldn't start, and the game would crash. Which is actually pretty interesting, like Frieza and Trunks. Yeah, 2 days later and we got the first Skull Battle for an extreme character, Android 18, and she had the potential to be a very good bench unit in the future. Her Z ability gave max health to the female warrior tag, so just like EX Raditz, she was going to be a staple on that team. We also had the 6th space-time duel at the same time, and it also gave Z power for Green 18, as well as a new gold equipment for Android's characters. It buffed their critical rate, base blast defense, and base strike attack. So yeah, a decent equipment. Like bro, they buffed that tag so much in the past week, it's just crazy. Another 2 days later, and it was time for a new Legends Rising banner, introducing 4 new characters. The new Sparking Bardock was just phenomenal. He was a melee type unit, his first unique ability gave him additional strike damage for each killed enemy, and more strike damage if 2 of your allies were dead. And his Z ability gave strike attack to units of the same tag. So this was already very good, like a strike unit that actually has multiple strike damage buffs. Then his second unique ability gave him additional key recovery when you had another same tag unit on your team, which I guess was good. His green card then gave him 50 key and cleansed him of all of his debuffs. So a very good green card to have on an offensive unit. But what really made him absolutely cracked was his main ability. It basically stopped enemies from switching for 10 timer counts and gave him even more strike damage. So you could generally just lock up one of your enemy's blue character and they were pretty much dead. Like literally there was nothing they could do. They were just cooked, bro. They were cooked. This was just so insane, especially considering the recent push of cover change abilities, which like block damage upon switching or like literally completely nullified damage upon switching with like the androids. So stopping the enemy from switching was just so good. And for some reason, Bardock had a very high base health stat. Like, I have no idea why, but his his health stat was just so high. So honestly, it was just safe to say that he was probably the best card in the game, or at least in like the top 5. The new Frieza was also pretty cracked. His special move couldn't get cancelled by most other special moves, meaning that if you and your opponent used a blue card at the same time, and instead of them cancelling each other or going into like a special move clash duel, Frieza's special move would just nullify theirs and damage them, just like it did with Bardock in the anime, as you can see. Then his main ability made him draw a blue card, while buffing his special move damage. So yeah, that was actually pretty good. Then his green card immobilized the enemy and reduced the cost of his special move cards. So this was actually a pretty nasty green card. Like, you could generally hit the enemy with a green card, pop your main ability, and just nuke them with his blue card. Then his unique ability gave him 40% blast damage against Sentai characters, which were still relevant in PvP, especially with the release of Bardock. This Frieza was also the first character to have blast armor on his strike cards, which was very good at the time, and is still to this day, as far as I know, a very strong ability. The two new Kabas weren't anything crazy, but they were the first Universe 6 units, if I'm not mistaken. And the green Kaba also introduced the Universe 6 tournament tag. We also got a new summer campaign, which was actually pretty packed. They doubled the number of selectable Logan bonus items, released another Ultra Ticket Summon banner, with 3 guaranteed Sparking tickets, gave a total of 500 Chrono Crystals through missions, doubled the EXP in the story mode, quintupled the Zenny you could obtain in the story mode, and cut the time of adventures and train items by half. Like, this was just insane for a campaign. Legends really was something else at the time. And that new Ticket Summon banner literally had characters that were released not even 2 weeks ago. Like, that's just such a crazy thing to do for a gacha game, even by 2 days standard. So imagine at the time. A week later, they added some hard mode stages to the Nappa story event, which also brought some new equipments. The first one was a gold equip for Krillin. It gave him blast attack, special move damage, and base key recovery speed, so a pretty good equipment. The second equip was for the Frieza's Force tag, and gave units of that tag more critical rate, base strike attack, and special move damage. So this was essentially just an equipment for the yellow Frieza, or even the new blue Frieza. Even though he was like a blast type unit, he could really use that additional special move damage, especially with how strong his blue card was. And the last equip was for Saiyan tag units, and give units of that tag more strike attack, critical rate, and base key recovery speed. So clearly an equipment for the new Bardock, clearly. 5 days later, and it was time for a new banner, introducing 3 new characters. Super Vegeta was genuinely ridiculous. He was a range type unit with very decent stats. Like, his unique ability gave him blast damage depending on the amount of time he was out on the battlefield, the longer the better, and I genuinely thought that this was a mistake the first time I saw that part of his kit, because after 15 timer counts, that guy had 70% blast damage. 70%, bro. Like, bro, 70% alone was just insane. But then his second unique ability made the enemies take even more blast damage, and his green card gave him more blast damage while also reducing the cost of his blast cards, and his blue card gave him even more blast damage. Like, that guy just had so much blast damage while also having one of the highest base blast attack stats in the game. Like, this was just crazy. Like, it was around that time that we could generally start to feel the power creep in the game. Like, that guy and Bardock were just on another level. It felt like they were literally on a tier of their own. His main ability also gave him a special ultimate skill that upped his key recovery, and he was the first unit to buff the Super Saiyan tag. Like, his Z ability gave blast attack and critical damage to the Super Saiyan tag. Blast attack and critical damage. Like, bro, that's just like, that Z ability was just so cracked. Super Trunks was also pretty good. He was a melee type unit that held 2 strike cards, so we were already off to a good start. Then his main ability gave him 75% strike damage for 10 timer counts, which at first just sounded absolutely cracked, but it upped the cost of his strike cards by 10, while also reducing his Vanished Ghost recovery speed, so it was actually somewhat balanced. Then his special skill gave him more strike damage, while also giving him a chance of fainting the enemy, and the thing is that his strike cards already had like a 5% chance of fainting the enemy, so with the right RNG this could be completely cracked. Then his first unique ability debuffed the enemies, making them take even more strike damage once he enters the battlefield. And his second unique ability gave him key recovery when an allied Vegeta was defeated, but he didn't really synergize that well with like any Vegetas we currently had in the game, even the new one, since they were quite opposite units. And his Z ability actually buffed the Hybrid Saiyan tag, like it gave Hybrid Saiyan units strike attack and critical chance, but the Hybrid Saiyan tag was actually starting to look like a real tag now. It just needed like 1 or 2 more top tier units units to really just make that tag like an actual like top tier team. Extreme Android 17 wasn't anything crazy. Like he could have had some use as a bench unit on the Android team, but his tag buffed the red type and not the Android tag. So I guess you could use him on a mono red team, but like I already explained earlier, that team wasn't really anything crazy. This new banner also introduced a new training item, Silver Bells, which was just straight up the new best training item in the game. And the banner gave you 10 of those every multi. So with how good Super Vegeta and Trunks were, that banner was definitely worth summoning on. They also revamped the whole training system, like the training items now had reduced training times while also giving more EXP, which was definitely a necessary change with the amount of characters they've been releasing. We then had the 7 space time duel that same day. This one gave Z power for the red Extreme Vegeta, who actually got a scout battle that same day, so it was clear that they were trying to push the mono red team, especially since the new equipment was for Trunks, and it gave him base key recovery speed, blast defense, and strike attack, so definitely pretty good for the red Sparking Trunks. A couple of days later, and they released the top 30 of the most used characters in PvP, and as you can see, the top 5 were pretty much who you would expect: Piccolo, Android 17, Bardock, Broly, and Super Saiyan Goku. I guess Piccolo really was just that good, and I'm sure Super Saiyan Goku was just there because many of the top players had him with multiple dupes, and that Bardock Saiyan team was just so cracked. 2 days later, and they dropped the 4th Ultra Space Time banner, a banner that came with 5 new units. Perfect Cell was a range type unit that held 2 blast cards, then his special move pretty much bypassed enemies' cover change damage reduction, which was very good. Then his main ability made him draw an ultimate skill that had a 30% chance of fainting the enemy. His green card buffed his own damage while reducing the enemy's health recovery by half, so not a bad green card. Then his first unique ability gave him 40% blast damage against units from the Super Saiyan tag, and his second unique ability upped the cost of the enemy's strike and blast cards by 5 once he entered the battlefield. So this guy was clearly here to counter Super Vegeta, but his Z ability gave strike attack to units of the regen tag, and that tag wasn't quite there yet, so I guess that kind of held that guy back a little bit at the time. But I guess he still had a place on the Android team, just it wasn't like the optimal team for him. Super Saiyan Goku was actually insane. I know I've said that multiple times already, but bro, they just dropped so many crazy units that month. Like, what can I say, bro? This new Goku was a support type unit, and he had a very interesting blue card. His blue card had a built-in counter mechanic, meaning that if you timed his blue card correctly, Goku would actually do the instant transformation Kamehameha and counter whatever move the enemy was about to make. But thankfully it reduced your Venshin Gauge to 0, so it wasn't like broken beyond belief. His blue cards also had a 20% chance to faint, so he could literally counter and stun you, which was probably the most toxic combo the game had seen to date. Then he had a special cover change, where Goku would literally just teleport and save whichever character he switched with, and the crazy part of that cover change is that it could even dodge a Rising Rush attack, so that was definitely nasty, but thankfully it could only be used once. Well, technically twice with his main ability. Like his main ability gave him another charge of that cover change, made him draw a blue card, and gave him more blast damage. So yeah, that main ability, just for the additional cover change charge alone, was pretty strong. Then his green card gave him more blast damage and key recovery, so that was good, and his second unique ability gave strike damage to Gohan allies. This wasn't something you could really utilize at the time, but it didn't take long for that part of his passive to just completely break the game. Then his Z ability gave green characters strike and blast attack during battle, so you can guess that this was pretty cracked on Bardock's Saiyan team. Honestly, that guy was probably just the new best unit in the game, which was just crazy. Like, they literally released 3 best unit in the game contenders in the span of a month, bro. A month. I don't really remember the new Extreme Second Form Cell being anything good though, nor the Hero Cell or Cell Jr., but having those cards in game was, I guess, still cool. They also updated the shop with a new starter pack, this time including Z power of the new Goku. Those were generally not really worth it from what I remember, since it included some pretty old Sparkins, but this time around, it introduced not only one of the new Sparkin unit, but the best one on the banner, and arguably just straight up the best unit in the game. So if you're ever going to spend money on that game, that was the pack to spend your money on. We also had another Ultra Ticket Summon banner with free Sparkin tickets, so you could potentially get the new Goku for free. Like bro, just how crazy is that? Even though the power creep was starting to get out of control, at least the game was generous. Like genuinely, what happened to that game? Free Sparkin tickets, like literally pulling the free Sparkin unit just like that, bro. The new unit, bro. The unit that just came out, you got it. You could get it for free, bro. You could get 2 copies of that unit for free if you're lucky enough. Like, just that's crazy, bro. That's just crazy. Then we had the update 1.13.0, which added some pretty significant quality of life updates. Like it added a rematch option, the ability to use multiple skip tickets at the same time, and the auto mode. Crazy to think that those things weren't a thing at some point in time. Like they got introduced into the game so early on that To me, it felt like they were always there. I barely remember what it was like to play Legends without any of those features. The month ended with a new story event, where we could get Z power of the Extreme Android 20, and a new story event also meant new equipments. The first equip was just a regular bronze equip, and it gave strike defense, blast defense, and base health, so clearly something meant for a tank. The second equip was for units of the Vegeta's clan or family, and it gave them blast defense, strike defense, and base key restore speed, so this was clearly an equipment for the Red Super Saiyan Trunks and Red Super Saiyan Vegeta. The third equip was for units of the Super Saiyan Tag, and it gave them special move damage, base strike attack, and blast attack, so this was good on all of the new Super Saiyan units. The last equip was for Android Tag units, and it gave them blast attack, more crit chance, and additional defenses against Super Saiyan units, which I guess made sense. The two best tags at the time were the Saiyan and Android tags, but with all of the recent Crazy Saiyan units they released, they had to give something to the Android tag, I guess, to keep things balanced. The month of September started with the 8th Super Space Time Duel, where we could farm Z power of a new yellow Extreme First Form cell, who actually came with its own Scout Battle event that same day. That new cell wasn't anything crazy and only valued for one reason, his Z ability. He gave max health to Android tag units, so he was mainly just used as a bench unit for that team. That new Space Time Duel also came with a new equipment, an equipment for the Regen tag, giving units of that tag more base crit, key restore speed, and additional defenses against Android units, which I guess was alright. Like, not the best equip, since PvP was mainly dominated by Saiyans at the time, but the Android tag was for sure still very strong, and arguably was the second strongest team in the game. 2 days later, and Legends had reached 100 days since its global release. And to celebrate that milestone, they held a special Login campaign that lasted 10 days. And as you can see, the rewards were pretty cracked, and you were able to choose 2 of them every day. I personally remember going for the current crystals, obviously, and then I think I rotated between the different Z powers. Like, I'm pretty sure Yellow Gohan was like the best character here, but Goku had the best team. Like, all of the rewards were decent, so it really depended on what you needed at the time. We also had the first Masters Pack banner that same day, a crazy banner, since it included Super Vegeta and Trunks, and every Sparkin that released before them. And that banner came with its own ticket version, but you couldn't get those tickets from daily missions yet. You could only get them from the Rare Medals shop, and at the time you could get about 30 of those tickets from the Rare Medals shop, and as far as I remember, those tickets resetted every new PvP season, or maybe that came in like a future update. I don't remember. We'll have to wait and see. That banner also came with 4 new extreme units, and they were pretty good. Yellow Bardock and Yellow Frieza were pretty much watered down versions of their Sparkins counterparts, so they were actually not bad. Like, I remember Bardock being like one of the best extreme character in the game at the time, but like obviously nothing absolutely crazy. Then Zarbon and Dodoria were just cracked support type units for Frieza. Zarbon gave 50% blast damage to Frieza's characters when switching out, and Dodoria 50% strike damage. Like, those buffs were ridiculous, but unfortunately the best Frieza in the game was Blue, and Bardock and Super Saiyan Goku were still the best units in the game. So yeah, that buff was good, but not enough to be able to deal with them. Another 2 days later, and it was time for a new Legends Rising banner, but not any Legends Rising banner, the banner that introduced Super Sensu Gohan into the game. This was for sure the hypest release since Broly. Purple Gohan was a melee type unit, and a unit that was actually heavily undervalued on release. People just didn't understand how strong he actually was, because it's true that at first glance, his main ability and special moves weren't anything crazy. Like, his main ability gave him like an ultimate skill that completely stopped the enemies from healing for 15 timer counts, and most of the top tier teams at the time didn't really use characters that healed. His Z ability also gave strike attack to the Hybrid Saiyan tag, and like, sure, Gohan was exactly what that tag was missing, and the Hybrid Saiyan team was definitely like a viable team now, but it still just wasn't like on the same tier as like the Saiyan or Android's team. So him having a Z ability that buffed that team essentially made him look bad and worse. But what people didn't understand is that this guy didn't have to be used on a Hybrid Saiyan team. As a matter of fact, he worked best on a Saiyan team with Bardock and Super Saiyan Goku, a Goku that actually buffed him if you remember. And since both him and Bardock were strike units that held 2 strike cards, there was some level of synergy here. You could even replace Goku with Super Trunks if you wanted even more strike cards on your team. And the thing that really made Gohan crazy was obviously his unique abilities. His first unique ability gave him additional buffs based on the numbers of down enemies and allies once he enters the battlefield, and his second unique ability gave him 10% damage for 20 timer counts every time he got hit. And I mean every time, even if it was just a key tap attack. And you can guess that this could ramp up pretty quickly. And on top of that, he had an additional 50% damage the first time he got hit when below 50% HP. Like, this was just disgusting. Like, that guy, once he was the last man standing, was just the hardest hidden unit in the game. And then his green card also protected him from debuffs for 15 timer counts, while giving him even more damage. So that guy just couldn't be stopped. Like, you could generally sweep the enemy team with him if he was one of the last units on the battlefield. Like, he just did so much damage, it was crazy. And his stats were also insanely good. So yeah, that guy that guy was just a monster. As like a last man standing unit, that guy was just a beast. Blue Super Saiyan Goku was also a melee type unit and actually served the same purpose as Gohan. He was a last man standing type of card. His special move had a ridiculous 50% damage buff. His main ability made him draw a blue card, boosted his own key recovery, and gave him more special move damage against Broly units. A little bit too late for that, like Broly wasn't out of the meta yet, but he wasn't like a top tier unit anymore. Then his green card enhanced his next blue card, and the buffs depended on the amount of remaining allies you had. The less allies alive, the greater the boosts, and the card had a very low cost of 9 key. But on the downside, the cost of his green card was increased by 5 each time it was used, up to an additional 15 key, which was pretty unfortunate since this guy had a very bad base key recovery speed stat, and his unique abilities gave him an additional 20% damage and made him draw a blue card when 2 of his allies were defeated. So the guy was good, and I remember him being pretty decent like his first month on like a mono blue team or the Saiyan team. Like, he gave base strike defense to the Saiyan tag, but then I just don't know what happened. Like, he just fell off like crazy. Probably because of like his base key recovery speed. Like, it was pretty low, one of the lowest in the game for like a sparking unit. So yeah, that actually kind of held him back. Extreme Purple Orochi was a very interesting card. He introduced the Dragon Ball Saga tag and gave it a pretty massive buff, and then it had such a cool unique ability, Sunglasses, making him immune to flash, so he was immune to the Solar Flare green card. Like, this was a pretty cool idea. Not anything like meta breaking, but a cool idea. And I remember him being like an actual like viable card in PvP. Like, not the greatest card, but like he was alright. Extreme Pan and Hero Roshi weren't anything special though. Like, I guess Pan was a cool addition to the female warrior tag with her Z ability, but that was about it. 3 days later, and it was time for the update 1.14.0. A pretty big update actually. The update renewed the daily missions. Like, it increased the amount of chrono crystals they give every day by 10 and added the Master Box 1 ticket as a daily reward. So this was huge, as you would guess. Like, the banner had some pretty good units at the time, so getting free tickets every day was very hype. It also added new bonus battles that rotated every day of the week, and they gave a ton of souls, so this was the new best place to farm souls. Almost a week later, and they added a new story event with a new farmable Extreme Vegeta, and as you would guess, some new equipments. Vegeta really wasn't anything like crazy and worth going over, so we'll move directly to the equipments. The first equip was for the yellow type, and gave units of that color strike attack, base key restore speed, and additional defenses against Saiyan characters for 20 timer counts. So yeah, this equipment was clearly made for the yellow Android 18. Like, she could use literally everything that equipment had to offer, and she was still pretty decent on the Android team. The second equip was for the blue type, and gave units of that color blast attack, special move damage, and additional damage to Saiyan tag units for 20 timer counts. So the equipment was clearly made for the new Super Saiyan Goku and Broly. I think even Frieza could use it. Like, Saiyans were so dominant at the time that any offensive blue character could honestly use it. The third equip was for units of the Sun family or Super Warrior tags, and it gave them strike defense, blast attack, and base key recovery speed. So a decent equip. Like, I'm pretty sure Purple Gohan could use that, even though he was a melee type unit, because the guy had a pretty decent blast based attack stat. The last equip was for units of the Frieza's Force tag, and it gave them strike attack, blast attack, and base key restore speed. So yeah, an equipment that was good on any offensive Frieza's Force tag units. It was also time for the 9th space-time duel, where you could farm Z power of the green Extreme Turles, who got a scout battle event that same day, and a new equipment, also for Turles. That new gold equip gave Turles' units base blast attack, additional defenses against units from the Sun family tag, and base health. So generally a very good equip for Purple Turles. But from what I remember, Turles still didn't really have like a decent team he could be run on at the time, and he himself wasn't really on the same tier as like the recent Saiyan units they released, so this didn't really do much for him even after his recent buffs. Another week later, later, and they released a Saiyan themed banner featuring all of the most popular Saiyan tag units, including Green Bardock and Yellow Spur Vegeta. So yeah, that banner was crazy, and they knew that. So the banner was only available for 2 days. 2 days, bro. What kind of FOMO was that? Like, that was just crazy. But yeah, the banner was probably worth a couple of multis just because of Bardock. Like, Vegeta and Goku were very good, but they were mainly just stats, so they were eventually going to age out, and it was probably going to happen sooner rather than later. But Bardock's main ability was just so good that the game was probably going to stay relevant longer than them. Before the end of the month, we had the 5th Ultra Space Time banner, and it came with 4 new units, and they were all pretty good from what I remember. Green Goten was a melee type unit who held 2 strike cards, then his special move gave him additional strike damage, and also had a chance of fating the enemy, something that was pretty annoying on the Green Spurs and Goku, so that was definitely good. Then his main ability was pretty interesting. It basically destroyed all of your blast cards and gave him 50% damage per blast card destroyed, up to 200%, and then made you draw a new card. So this was actually a pretty broken main ability. It definitely required some thinking and RNG, but in the right scenarios, this could be just so cracked. Like 200% damage. Like, that was just crazy. Then his green card gave him additional strike damage, while also reducing the cost of his strike cards by 1 for each battle member of the Hybrid Saiyan tag. So he was made to be used on the Hybrid Saiyan team, a team that he actually buffed with his Z ability, but also a team that was actually pretty cracked now. Him, Trunks, and Gohan were really what that team was missing. As for his unique abilities, the first one gave him 20% strike damage for 30 timer counts from the start of battle, and his second unique ability gave him 40% strike damage with an allied Trunks on your team. So he was clearly built to be paired with the new Kid Trunks. Like, with him, that guy was absolutely nasty. I remember pulling both of them at the time, and like the damage this guy could dish out was just something else. But you could also pair him with like any other Trunks, as far as I remember. Like, it didn't have to be specifically Kid Trunks. So yeah, that guy was very good. The new yellow Trunks was basically just the ranged version of Gohan. His blue card gave him blast damage, but instead of having a chance of fating the enemy, it just reduced their ki recovery speed, so not as good as Goten, but still decent. Then his main ability reduced the ki recovery of the enemy by 100% for 10 timer counts, then gave him 75% gauge recovery speed when his own health was higher than his opponent for 10 timer counts. It's actually a pretty nasty main ability when used correctly and like at the right time. His green card then gave him 10% blast damage and reduced the cost of his blast cards by 1 for each battle member of the Hybrid Saiyan tag, so a very good green card. And just like Goten, his Z ability also buffed the Hybrid Saiyan tag, and he literally had the exact same unique abilities as Goten. It's just that they gave him blast damage instead of strike attack and required an allied Goten battle member instead of a Trunks, which was definitely worse, since Goten only had like 1 viable card, but Trunks had many cards at the time. So yeah, the guy was very good. Not as good as Goten, but still a very solid card. And bro, like I already said, those two paired together were just absolutely crazy. Blue Piccolo was a range type unit that held 2 blast cards, and the guy was literally just a counter to the Android team. Like, literally, that was his whole purpose. Like, his blue card countered Purple 17's cover change ability. His first unique ability debuffed Android tag units once he entered the battlefield, making them take more blast damage. His second main ability just straight up gave him 50% blast damage against Android tag units. His green card gave blast damage to his whole team, and his main ability not only gave him more blast damage, but also removed the unfavorable elemental factors, meaning he was type neutral against a green unit, so that guy couldn't even be countered by a green Android type unit. Green characters couldn't do anything. Like, the guy was honestly just absolutely cracked against an Android team. And with the release of Android 16, that team was now better than ever, so this was actually pretty good. The only problem is that his Z ability buffed the regen tag, but that tag wasn't quite there yet. It still needed like a few units to become like an actual viable tag, but yeah, he was definitely still very good. Android 16 was, from what I remember, the best unit on that banner. Like, the guy was just cracked. His main ability gave him a special self-destruct card, just like Chaozu, but that card did an insane amount of damage, because the rest of his kit just buffed its damage like crazy. But not only that, his self-destruct card also gave Gohan characters 50% ki restore speed. Like, the synergy this guy had with Gohan was just insane, since like I already explained earlier, Gohan was a last stand unit. So if, for example, you and your opponent had 2 units left, and that you managed to hit the enemy with 16's self-destruct card, well, then you just won, literally. Because Gohan was going to come into the battlefield with all of his buffs maxed out and an additional 50% ki recovery speed. Like, this was just an insane synergy. Like, this was crazy. Then 16's green card gave him 30 key, but also buffed his self-destruct damage. Same with his blue card, it also buffed his self-destruct damage. Then his first unique ability was a very strong cover change, giving him 50% damage reduction until the end of the enemy's combo, while also recovering 50% of the damage he took as HP. Like, what were they thinking? Like, what kind of cover change ability is that, bro? Like, that guy was straight up like the best tank in the game, especially with his stats. Like, bro, the guy was just insane. And since his ability buffed the Android tag, like, bro, it just pushed that team back to the top, like, literally. The Extreme Goten and Trunks were also not bad for extreme units, like they synergized well together and had decent stats, but as far as I remember, nothing crazy. The month ended with the update 1.15.0. That update added the forfeit function in PvP. Crazy to think that this wasn't a thing at some point in time. Like, you couldn't even FF in PvP. Like, if that's just crazy. They also added the equipment ranking system. Equipments could now go up to the Z tier if you had like all of the slots maxed out. But honestly, I don't even know if someone actually had a Z tier equipment. Like, you couldn't reroll equipment slots. So to have like a Z tier equip, you had to be like so extremely lucky, like another level of lucky at a time. Like, from what I remember, most players just had like A tier equips, and if you were like very lucky, you had like an S tier equipment. Or if you were like an absolute crackhead, maybe you had like full S tier equips. But the Z tier, yeah, that was just something else. The month of October started with a double rates Master Pack Swan banner, which as far as I remember was only really worth it if you were a newer player. Like, sure, most of the Sparkins on the banner were still decent, but with all of the free tickets they were given, and with how crazy the power creep was getting, you were honestly just better off saving your Chrono Crystals and just using your tickets instead, unless you were like a well and looking for a specific extreme class character, as this was, I'm pretty sure, the banner with the best extreme class rates we had seen yet. I don't know how Legends is nowadays, but back then, extreme class characters were arguably harder to pull than Sparkin units, so this was actually a pretty decent banner. Like, some of these extreme class units were actually pretty good. They then at the same time also dropped a new event where we could farm Z power of the green extreme Android 18, as well as a bunch of new equipments for the female warrior / girls tag. The first gold equip wasn't bad, as it gave some decent defenses, especially against Saint tag units who were still part of the meta, but it was still kind of situational. The second gold equip was actually pretty good and clearly built for yellow Android 18, as it gave her base track attack, base health, and damage against red units. The equip was also very good on Blue Pan, who was actually starting to make a comeback as more and more hybrid Saint units were getting released. The next equip gave blast defense, special move damage, and key restore speed. It was fine at the time, but not really like the craziest equip, since special move damage wasn't really the most important stat at the time. Like, getting more strike or blast attack was way more important. And the last equip was probably the best one of the bunch. It was the first equip in the game that boosted Vanishing Gauge recovery speed up to 15%. On top of that, it had key restore speed and strike defense, which were huge in a meta dominated by strike based units. This equip was huge for Pan or Android 18, as it basically gave them the ability to fully restore their Vanishing Gauge during a combo, if you were sidestepping obviously, which as you would guess was just ridiculous. Then came the 10th Super Space Time Duel, which actually brought one of the biggest quality of life changes in early Legends. For the first time, players didn't need to reach the top 1000 to get rank rewards. Now anyone in the top 10,000 received full ranking rewards, which was a huge for casual players and made PvP way more rewarding. That same season also added a new equipment for Piccolo units. It gave 20% blast attack, 15% strike attack, and up to 25% extra damage against Android tag units. It was a great counter to Android 16, who was literally just the best tech in the game. But that new equipment was not the only thing we could farm for that new PvP season. The PvP adventures not only dropped Z power of the extremely yellow Piccolo, but also Z power for the Sparkin green Piccolo. The rates, as far as I remember, were pretty bad, but it was still pretty cool and made PvP a little bit more interesting. Like, the dopamine you got from seeing those shiny Sparkin Z powers from your PvP adventures just made the PvP grind feel a little bit more worth it. The Piccolo Scout Battle also returned. It let players farm a couple hundred crystals if they cleared all of the missions with him. On top of that, Super Soul trees were permanently added to the exchange shop, meaning you could upgrade units to 1500 anytime without waiting for event rotations, though it was obviously still smarter to farm them normally and save your rare medals for better items obviously. A week later, Legends dropped something completely new. The first step up banner in the game, and this one featured two brand new characters, Sparkin Hercule and Sparkin Demon King Piccolo. Now, the concept of a step up banner was completely new at the time, at least in Legends. Basically, instead of having a flat cost per multi, you were incentivized to keep summoning, since each step was different, with some of them even guaranteeing you a Sparkin unit, which was just something absolutely crazy for the time. And you even had a free multi-summon every 5 multis. In total, if you went through all 7 steps, it costed around 400 Chrono Crystals for 58 summons and 2 guaranteed Sparkin tickets. So essentially you got a discount of about 30% compared to regular banners, which was just so good. But even though the banner format was absolutely cracked, the featured units were just not that crazy. Sparkin Hercule was interesting to say the least. On paper he was a red type defensive unit, but that title was honestly misleading. He played more like a support type unit than anything else. Like bro, the guy wasn't tanky at all. His raw stats were abysmal, easily among the lowest of any Sparkin units at the time, even below some hero characters. But his kit was what made him stand out, because it was unlike anything the game had seen before. His main ability upped the cost of all the enemies' blast arts to 99 key for 15 timer counts, meaning your opponent could barely use blast attacks if at all. So if you were fighting someone who relied on blast heavy units, it could completely shut down their combos and force them to rely only on strike cards or to change characters. Then his green card destroyed both his and the enemy's hands. Used correctly, this could actually be pretty insane and could literally save you or an enemy's green or blue card combo. As for his blue card, who he held actually, I'm pretty sure this is the first unit in Legends history to hold a blue card, reduced all allies' substitution counts by 10, meaning that after landing a blue card, you could just switch in any allies you wanted. But what was really interesting about that guy was his unique abilities. The first one gave his team 20% damage and 30% key recovery every time he was hit below 30% HP, up until he was defeated. And his second unique ability gave him endurance, meaning the first time he died, he revived with 20% HP, which also made him able to tank a rising rush. Obviously the guy was extremely squishy, so you couldn't really make the best out of his first unique ability, but it was still pretty interesting. And his second unique ability was pretty good, as it basically let you tank anything in the game at least once. Like I said earlier, like you could literally tank a rising rush with it. As for Sparkin Demon King Piccolo, he was a yellow melee type unit and easily one of the most creative characters Legends had released so far, because of the new mechanic he introduced, Dragon Ball stealing. His main ability was game changing. If your opponent had Dragon Balls, he could literally take them away and add them to your own rising rush count. If they had 2, he'd take both and gain 2 himself. It was one of the most oppressive abilities in early Legends history. Well, this was just so crazy at the time. If you timed it right, you could literally swing the whole momentum of a match, denying your opponent the rising rush while instantly getting yours. His blue cards also scaled in power the lower his health got, going up to an additional 50% special move damage when under 30% HP, letting him make crazy comebacks from very bad situations. Every time he entered the battlefield, his first unique ability increased the enemy's substitution count by 2, forcing longer lock-ins and preventing quick tagouts. A nightmare for squishy teams. On top of that, his second unique made him gradually heal whenever he entered the battlefield, giving him extra sustain for longer fights. He also came with a poison effect on his strike cards, letting him slowly chip away at your opponent's HP over time. Combined with his Dragon Ball control and the fact that his Z ability boosted the regen tag, yeah, the regen team was now an actual viable team now. As for the banner itself, it honestly wasn't really a must summon. Like, if you were missing a lot of Sparkins, it was, I guess, a good deal, since it guaranteed at least 2 new Sparkin units after completing like all of the steps. But if you were mainly pulling for Demon King Piccolo, the odds weren't really that great, as the banner was filled with old Sparkin units, so the chances of you pulling one of the new units were actually lower than in a regular Ultra Space Time banner, at least as far as I remember. Alongside this banner, Legends also gave out 500 free Chrono Crystals in a ticket for the 5th Ultra Space Time banner as compensation for the extended maintenance, which was actually pretty decent. The update also added the second part of the 5th book of the story mode, which gave a good amount of blue and purple souls, which was actually pretty decent if you were still working on leveling up your characters past the level 1500. The patch also fixed some bugs with the skip tickets and energy restoration not displaying correctly, and improved the equipment slot visuals. Nothing crazy, but it made the game smoother overall. A few days later, Legends dropped an official statement about sidestep and dash step. For context, sidestepping was an advanced technique that allowed you to cancel the short immobility that came after using a strike or blast card by quickly swiping or boost dashing, and when chained correctly, you could infinitely permanently extend combos while regenerating ki and drawing new cards. But on October 12, the developers finally addressed it. They explained that while these mechanics were intentional, they eventually gave players too much of an advantage, and they officially confirmed that adjustments were coming in a future update, and that the team had made the decision after observing the impact it had on PvP and how they'll have to design future units. So yeah, they basically admitted that sidestepping wasn't an exploit, and actually a built-in mechanic, but one that ended up being just too good when used properly. And if you were playing back then, you just know how big that was. Like, sidestepping was a major part of PvP. Every top player relied on it to extend combos, outplay vanishing steps. It was actually what made the game skill-based in the first place. This might be like a little bit of a stretch, but I'm pretty sure people were only watching the top players because of their ability to like use that quote-unquote mechanic efficiently. So when Bandai announced that they were planning to adjust it, yeah, you can guess that the community just went wild, bro. Now, we didn't know at the time if they were going to remove it completely, but people speculated that the devs were likely going to just tone it down, maybe by reducing ki recovery while sidestepping, that the idea wasn't to erase the mechanic, but just to prevent infinite combos that could delete entire teams in one go. Because let's be honest here, like, the big issue was that as new characters released with faster ki recovery and more card draw speed abilities, yeah, sidestepping was just going to be like too powerful. Combos were already starting to last pretty long. Like, most often times than not, whoever landed the first hit like literally won the game. So I guess the devs wanted to like bring back neutral play, making it so that both players had like more chances to turn the fight around. Probably why they started pushing the regen tag and all of those defensive units. Like, honestly, this all made sense in theory, but for many players this change felt like the beginning of the end, and that there won't be any more skill expression in PvP. Like, you have to understand that this was before the revamp of the dupe system and all of the equipment like VS that came in the future, like the reroll mechanic and all of that. Like, back then the biggest difference between Wells and regular players were actually mainly just the units they had. Like, the difference in stats wasn't as massive as it is today. So the community genuinely feared that if sidestep was nerfed too hard, matches would become more pay to win. But nothing's new here. Like, that's pretty much exactly how the community reacted when they removed double tapping a couple of months prior. So yeah, what a surprise. A couple of days later and we had a new countdown campaign, as a big update was on the horizon. The Logan bonus rewards weren't anything crazy, but still cool to have. That same day, the game also received a new PvP season, the 11th Super Space Time Duel. This one was built around Frost, who finally got some spotlight. Players could farm his Z power through PvP adventures and limit break him to 7 stars just by grinding rating matches. The event also dropped a new piece of equipment for blue units, which gave critical, strike attack and extra defense against hybrids when your health dropped below 50% HP. It wasn't amazing overall, but since hybrid Saiyans were dominating the meta back then, it wasn't entirely useless either. Content wise, the update also added part 2 book 6 of the story mode, giving players 9 new chapters to clear, though only a normal mode. The next day and we got V-Jump leaks. Bro, man, do I miss those days when V-Jump leaks actually had useful information. The scans revealed a ton of new content, starting with the one thing that got everyone hyped: Super Saiyan Shallot. According to the leaks, Shallot would soon be able to transform into a Super Saiyan in battle, and the way to unlock it was tied to something completely new: the friendship system. The idea was that by training and fighting alongside other characters, you'd build up friendship levels. Once your friendship level with a certain unit reached level 2, you could actually teach Shallot that character's special move, meaning his blue card could change depending on who you bonded with. So for example, you could give Shallot Vegeta's Gallic Gun or Goku's Kamehameha, which sounded just so cool at the time. It also looked like the friendship system would let you unlock new accessories and visual upgrades for Shallot, probably hinting that he'll slowly evolve as the story progressed. And you can guess that people immediately started speculating about like his future transformations, like Super Saiyan 2 or Super Saiyan God. Something that people still do. Like, there are still people waiting for like Shallot's Super Saiyan 4 transformation, or like Ultra Instinct, or maybe in the future Ultra Ego, who knows? Who knows? But I guess from there the most logical transformation would be like Super Saiyan Blue Evolution, or maybe Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken. But Shallot wasn't the only highlight. The second page of the leak showed off the next Ultra Spacetime banner, and it featured 3 new Sparking units: Super Saiyan Gotenks, Dabura, and Fat Buu. This banner was actually a pretty big deal, as with Gotenks finally being added to the game, it meant the door was now open for Gogeta and Vegito to appear in the future. Some players even predicted at the time that Gogeta could drop as soon as early November. November. Fast forward a couple of days later, and it was finally time for the big update. Not only did it completely change PvP, it also introduced Super Gogeta and Janemba into the game, which was honestly a surprise. Like, we knew Gogeta and Janemba were coming soon, but we didn't think they dropped them in October, so that was, as you would guess, insanely hype. Like, the update itself was pretty big. They completely redesigned the UI, PvP had been rebalanced, and Super Saiyan Charlotte was now officially playable. Most players cleared the second part of Book 7, Chapter 11 of the story mode. Charlotte gained the ability to transform in battle and could even learn special moves from other characters, just like we explained earlier. But the biggest thing here was the sidestep nerf that had been teased earlier that month. Combo chaining became slower and less rewarding. Ki and vanish recovery were drastically reduced, and players could no longer combo infinitely. Like, the days of infinite sidestep combos were officially over. And despite that, and all of the quality of life improvements that update brought, like faster equipment swapping, better team editing, and rebalanced EXP rates, obviously the big talk was still about the two new Sparkins, Super Gogeta and Super Janemba. Red Super Gogeta instantly became one of the strongest units in the game. He was a red melee type unit designed to deal heavy damage and scale up as the match went on. He had a very similar kit to Purple Super Saiyan Gohan, meaning the less allies he had, the stronger he became, so once he was the last man standing, his damage was just through the roof. One of his unique abilities gave him up to 40% extra damage when both teammates were down, and he could restore 20% of his health with his main ability while drawing an Ultimate's art card, and bro, that ultimate move hit like a truck and restored 50 ki on activation. Bro, the damage this was doing was just insane. And it also had a 20% chance to inflict feint, allowing you to stun enemies and extend your combos for massive burst potential. Gogeta's only downside really was that his counter move wasn't as good as Janemba's, as it only worked against strike attacks and couldn't be comboed with afterward, but his pure damage output more than made up for it. Meanwhile, Janemba was labeled as a defensive unit. His stats were incredible for the time. He had the third best HP stat in the game, a top 5 defensive stat, and still in the top 15 in both strike and blast attacks. But Janemba's green card was what really made that guy insane. It acted as a counter against blast attacks, and let him immediately follow up with a combo, while boosting his strike damage by 20%. His special move also restored half of his vanishing gauge, which was huge in new post-sidestep nerf meta, where regaining vanish was now harder than before. So yeah, combined with his regen synergy and tankiness, Janemba just made the regen tag even better. But Gogeta was still seen as the better unit at the time, while Janemba was seen as like the better long-term investment, since his kit would probably age better with the new meta focused on vanish management, or at least so people thought. As for their banner, it was actually pretty good. It featured 4 top tier Sparkins, the new Gogeta and Janemba, as well as Yellow Super Vegeta and Blue Goku, all incredibly strong for the time. So you can guess that players summoned like crazy. The month ended with a new banner and PvP season. The 12th Super Space Time Duel brought back Charlotte's exclusive equip, coupled that with his new Super Saiyan transformation, and the guy was actually pretty good. Not like a top tier unit by any means, but definitely runnable in PvP. As for the new banner, like we talked about previously, it introduced Super Saiyan Gotenks, Fat Boo and Dabura. Let's start with Purple Super Saiyan Gotenks. His release finally completed the Super Saiyan color wheel in Legends. He was a purple range type unit, the very first purple Super Saiyan in the game, and his entire design was built around dominating the early game. Right from the start of battle, Gotenks was a monster. His last attack stat was the highest in the entire game at launch, and his ki recovery speed was ridiculous, especially thanks to his first unique ability, which boosted his ki recovery by 50% every time he entered the battlefield. The only catch was that the buff would disappear once he got hit, meaning he had insane combo potential as long as you didn't get hit. His green cards then directly buffed his next blue card. The first use gave it a 50% damage boost, and the second use boosted it by 100%, while also adding a 70% chance to inflict feint into his next blue card, which was just like, bro, if you were able to like land it on someone, it was just over. Like, that alone made his green card one of the most dangerous green cards in the game, since like one single lucky feint could just win an entire match. Then his ultimate that you could draw through his main ability dealt heavy explode damage and had a 40% chance to paralyze, one of the most annoying status effects in the game. Between paralysis and feint, Gotenks could easily stun lock enemies if RNG was on your side, which made him pretty terrifying to fight against. But that said, he was pretty squishy. Like, his HP was fine, but his defenses were pretty low, and he had no damage reduction or like healing tools to sustain him in longer fights. Like, he was built entirely for the early game, so you had to win early with him, or else you were pretty much cooked in the late game. Still, Gotenks fit perfectly on the the Fusion Warriors and Hybrid Saiyans tags. And when paired with Gogeta, the two formed one of the strongest offensive duos in the entire game at the time. Then came Green Fat Buu, easily the most game-changing unit on the banner, and arguably one of the most impactful defensive characters Legends had ever seen to that point. He was a green defensive type unit, and the first character to let characters once switch in, and that single ability alone completely changed the PvP meta. His unique ability prevented opponents from swapping characters for 5 timer counts whenever he entered the battlefield, and could be activated twice per match. So if you caught a blue unit with Buu's switching in, that character was basically dead. They couldn't escape, and Buu was so tanky. His main ability healed all allies by 20% and removed their attributes downgrades. An extremely strong support ability that made him both a wall and a team healer at the same time. He also had a second unique ability which allowed him to recover 10% of the damage he took after each combo ended, combined with his built-in damage reduction from his green cards. So yeah, that guy was just incredibly hard to kill. Like with Buu's arrival, the Regen Tag was officially like a top tier team. Paired with like Demon King Piccolo, Blue Piccolo, Janemba, or Perfect Cell, bro, that team had literally everything. Like offense, defense, disruption, sustain, control, like literally everything. And bro, blue units completely vanished from the PvP ladder for weeks because of how oppressive Buu was. Pretty much what happened with Green Bardock. Like the ability to lock at a character was just, bro, this was just so insane at the time. Finally, there was Dabura. He was a blue support type unit, and while his stats weren't built for heavy damage, his utility made him an excellent control character. His first unique ability, sealed one of your opponent's arts card, slots for 10 timer counts every time he entered the battlefield, up to twice per match. His main ability then gave him and his teammates temporary immunity to attribute downgrades, which countered some of the most annoying debuff heavy teams in the game. His special skill, Meditation, restored 30k, gave him 10% damage reduction, and let him slowly build momentum while supporting the team. He even had an anti-hybrid Saiyan passive, giving him 40% blast damage against hybrid Saiyans, making him a pretty solid counterpick to units like Purple's percent to Gohan. So while Dabura wasn't as good as Gotenks or Fat Buu, he could still look pretty scary in the right hands and with the right setups. Overall, that new banner was pretty solid, but like nothing special or essential. Each character was strong in their own way, but none were enough honestly to be like absolute must summons. Well, except maybe for Fat Buu, but honestly the meta was just evolving so rapidly that it was just a matter of time before that guy got countered. So yeah, even though he was cracked, you were better off saving your Chrono Crystals. The month of November started with Dragon Ball Legends being nominated as one of the best games of 2018 in the Google Play Store in Japan. And honestly, at the time, it was well deserved. Legends was actually a pretty decent game. Crazy how things have changed. But yeah, they gave everyone 1000 Chrono Crystals to celebrate that nomination, which was pretty insane for the time. A week later, and we got another wave of content, but nothing crazy. We got the second part of the book 8 of the story mode. The bonus battle schedule received a revamp. Instead of having only one color available per day, Legends made it so multiple color battles would rotate throughout the week, allowing players to farm more efficiently without waiting several days for specific Zenkai slots. They also brought back the Legends Saiyan banner. The featured Sparkins were Green Bardock, who was still one of the best units in the game, Yellow Super Vegeta and Blue Super Saiyan Goku, who even though were not on the same tier as Bardock, were still pretty decent, and Red Super Saiyan Goku and Purple Vegeta, who were honestly outdated by that point. Another week later, and they dropped another Legends banner, but a new one this time, focused entirely on androids. The banner was called, obviously, Legends Androids, and it introduced a brand new blue Sparkin Android 18, alongside returning units like Perfect Cell, Android 16, and Android 17. At first glance, this banner actually didn't look that bad. Cell was still an extremely strong S tier unit, Android 16 was like the best tank in the game, and Android 17 was still pretty decent on the Android team. As for the new 18, she was a blue melee type unit, and her first unique ability lowered her strike arts cost by 10 for the first 30 timer counts, which paired with her naturally high key recovery speed, turned her into a combo monster. Her green cards then restored 50 key and 40% of her vanishing gauge, turning her into an even bigger menace. Like, brother, you could vanish, combo, and restore your vanish with her green card, then combo again and vanish again. Like, it was just ridiculous. Like, this was so OP. Her main ability then only needed 5 counts to activate, and it drew a blue card, while granting 40% damage inflicted for 20 timer counts. Her special moves also had a 40% chance to inflict paralysis, and made the enemies take more damage from strike cards, making her damage output even crazier. And also, before her release, the Android team already had powerful green and red options, like Android 16 and Perfect Cell, but it severely lacked a viable blue fighter, and Android 18 filled that gap perfectly, finally giving the tag a solid counter to red units like Gogeta, who dominated PvP at the time. So she was literally just the perfect unit they could give to that tag. Still, outside of Android mains, this banner was seen as a skip for most players. Like honestly, with Bardock and Fat Boo running around, it just wasn't a good time for blue units. And on top of that, with like all of the big units on the horizon and the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie releasing at the end of the year, this was an easy skip. The banner went live alongside the start of a new PvP season. Like the previous one, it didn't bring much new content, but it did bring a new equipment exclusive to blue units that could drop up to 50% strike damage reduction from green enemies once your HP dropped below 50%. Like honestly, that equipment was pretty huge since it actually gave a chance to blue characters. Like they could finally do something in a meta dominated by green characters who could lock you in, like Green Bardock and Fat Boo. The Goten Scout Battle also returned, rewarding players with 200 Chrono Crystals for clearing all of the EX stages. And the Frieza event received a hard mode update, adding new equipments. Though honestly most of them were like defensive equips and honestly weren't really worth the grind. A little bit over a week later, and Legends dropped a Step Up banner, a Black Friday Step Up banner, featuring 3 new pretty hype characters: Super Saiyan 3 Goku, Majin Vegeta, and Goku Black. Back then, this was by far the most hype banner the game had ever seen. The Step Up format was amazing. This was for sure the best banner format, and it dropped with actual good and hype characters this time. Super Saiyan 3 Goku was a red melee type unit, and every few timer counts he gained extra buffs. Damage increase at 50 counts, Ki recovery at 30 counts, and strike damage at 40 counts. And his unique ability gave him 40% strike damage against regeneration tag units, making him a direct counter to the dominant regeneration team. His ultimate move had a 25% chance to feint the enemy, and his blue cards inflicted strike damage debuffs, making him one of the most dangerous melee type unit in the game. Then you had Majin Vegeta, another melee type unit. His main ability let you draw his final explosion, and let me tell you, that thing was broken. And that's because unlike the other self-destruct abilities the game had at the time, this one's damage wasn't based on your current health, meaning you could pop it at the last second when you were low on HP and it would still do a ridiculous amount of damage. And the thing was also pretty much unstoppable. Like Majin Vegeta had blast and strike armor while charging up his final explosion. And not only did it nuke the enemy, it also nuked his bench units. Like just absolute craziness. His blue cards also buffed his self-destruct ability, and his green cards reduced the activation cost of his final explosion, which honestly was pretty long, so this was definitely very good. His first unique ability then buffed his damage every time he entered the battlefield, while also applying a 30% damage debuff to his allies, so it was balanced in a way. And his unique ability buffed his Ki recovery by 50% for 15 timer counts every time he faced a Goku enemy, which was pretty good with the release of the new Super Saiyan 3 Goku. And finally, Goku Black, he was a yellow type range unit. His main ability changed depending on his HP. If he was above 50% HP, he gained 50% damage. If he was below, he healed and got 35% damage. His unique abilities boosted his blast damage against Saiyan and Hybrid Saiyan's units, and as a whole he got stronger as battles dragged on, as he gained additional blast damage each time he defeated an enemy. And his green card just got better and better buffs as time went on. Like after 25 timer counts, his green cards were giving him 20% blast damage, 30% Vanishing Gauge recovery speed, and 25% to his Ki recovery speed. Like this was just insane. On release, he was one of the best design range units in the game, and quickly became a staple on future and God Key teams. Like that guy was just cracked. Honestly, the hype was just something else for this banner, and the cells too, as far as I remember. Like coming from Dokkan, those Dragon Ball Legends cells were just so much better at the time. I don't know what happened. Just a few days later, Legends dropped its second major balance change update. This was the second wave of character balance changes, released alongside version 1.21.0, and it targeted several of the least used characters in PvP, specifically the bottom 5 Sparkins and Extremes of the ranking matches for players who were above the rank 50 in the last space-time duel. As usual, some buffs were generally impressive and pretty good, while others barely made a difference, so yeah, let's go over them. Started with Purple Sparking Goku. His buffs were actually pretty significant. His Super Kamehameha was upgraded from Major to massive damage, and his critical rate boost was increased from 10 to 60%. His special skill, which boosted the power of his next blue card, now stacked faster. It just needed 2 activations instead of 3, and with much higher multipliers, so his one-handed Spirit Bomb could hit much harder, way faster, especially with his unique ability buffs going from 50% to 80% once his allies were down. Like, it didn't quite make him meta, but it definitely made him usable again for casual players. Next was Paikuhan, who had always been one of the least popular Sparkins since launch. His buffs improved his viability a bit, his anti-Frieza Force bonus doubled from 20% to 50%, and his main ability now activated faster and lasted longer, increasing arts cost for enemies for 20 timer counts instead of 10. Most importantly, his Z ability got a rework that added a strike defense boost for Saga from the movies, making him one of the early characters to help build that tag. It was still a stretch to call him good, but at least he finally had some synergy. The most noticeable winner of this update was Yellow Frieza. He received huge stat buffs and major improvements to his green card, which could now reach long range, making it one of the most annoying green cards in the game. His anti-Saiyan strike damage also doubled to 40%, and his ultimate attack got upgraded to massive damage with an added lineage of evil team buff, giving 20% strike damage to allies for 15 timer counts. These changes actually made him scary again, especially with how dominant Saiyans were in PvP at the time. Cooler also received a ton of upgrades. His green card's cost was reduced from 35 to 20, a massive improvement. His special move now applied a 25% plus damage debuff, and his Z ability started buffing both attack and defense for the Saga from the movies tag. His special move power up timer was also extended to 35 counts instead of 20, and his main ability could now activate much earlier. Overall, Cooler went from borderline unusable to actually pretty solid, especially on a movie Saga team, a tag that had a lot of potential with the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie in December. Then came Captain Ginyu, who probably got one of the most interesting buffs. His stats improved, his green card range was increased, and his Z ability began supporting both Ginyu Force and Frieza Force tag units, which was huge for synergy. On top of that, his abilities gained longer timers, and his purple skill, Body Change, now also reduced the enemy's Ki recovery by 85% on hit, and nasty debuff that could completely stall your opponent. So while he was still not meta, the guy still had potential, and was definitely not bad. The extreme units also got some love, even if they didn't get like the most significant buffs. Like Chaozu gained higher self-destruct synergy boost, Yamcha started buffing both strike and blast attack for green units, Kaba's stats increased and his Z ability now added defense to the Chamba Saga tag, Tien buffs made him more balanced offensively, and Mercenary Tao's ability upgrades finally added some HP bonuses, making him slightly more useful as a bench unit. Overall, the second balance patch didn't completely change PvP overnight, but it was another sign that the devs were paying attention. They were clearly experimenting with reviving old characters, strengthening team tags, and I guess testing the limits of those balance updates. Something that the devs clearly do not care about anymore. Like, genuinely, what happened to the devs team? That same day, Legends dropped the first ever Legends Road, featuring a new free-to-play Sparking Kid Goku. This new event was genuinely game-changing, because for the first time ever, players could farm a full Sparking character without spending a single Chrono Crystal. As for the event itself, it was very different than anything we had seen before. Instead of earning Z-Power through random drops or banner pulls, players had to farm 3 types of medals, bronze, silver, and gold, through specific stages in the event. Then each medal type was used to buy different items in the Legends Road exchange shop, including Z-Power for Kid Goku, his unique Ryzen and Super Souls, energy and skip tickets. Like, bro, you needed a lot of them to farm that guy. Like, bro, that event required so much energy, and even an exclusive cosmetic for Charlotte, Goku's power pole. But yeah, to unlock Kid Goku, you needed about 1000 bronze medals to buy his first 100 Z-Power. After that, you had to keep farming medals to purchase souls and more Z-Power, eventually totaling 700 Z-Power to reach 3 stars if they cleared everything. So yeah, I'm pretty sure on release, you couldn't really fully maxed him out yet. And as far as I remember, the most efficient route to farm that guy was to spend your first bronze medals on energy tickets before anything else. That way you could like keep farming without wasting Chrono Crystals on energy refills. like obviously. This was literally the strat. This new Legends Road also introduced new equipments. The first one boosted strike and blast attack by 15% and gave an additional 1 to 7% strike damage per yellow battle member, which was pretty good. Another one boosted special move and ultimate move damage by 15% and vanishing ghost recovery speed. And one offered strike defense, health, and blast defense bonuses for a yellow unit on the team. Like, all of those equips were just geared toward yellow units, and to make them even stronger. Kid Gugu himself was actually a pretty solid free unit for a time. Alongside the event, they also dropped a new banner, featuring the recently buffed Final Form Frieza, Baikuhan, Demon King Piccolo, Kid Trunks, and Heart Virus Goku. Before the balance patch, this would have been like a terrible banner, but now it was actually, honestly, not that bad. They also dropped, that same day, several other smaller updates. The main story got extended with the second part of the Book Tree of the Horn mode, which wasn't anything too exciting, but I guess it was like another source of Chrono Crystals, so that was good. Like, the real interesting thing here was the new tags they added to the game. They officially introduced the Future, Minion, and Lineage of Evil tags. The Future tag was huge, since it finally gave Goku Black proper team synergy for his Z ability. The Minion tag grouped characters like Cell Juniors and Cybermans together for the first time, and the Lineage of Evil tag connected all versions of Frieza, Cooler, and other family members, setting everything up for the future release of like Lord Chill, who was actually already being teased at the time. Alongside this, they dropped a new Scout battle featuring Third Form Frieza, giving players another 200 Chrono Crystals and a way to farm his Z power. PvP also received a new season with a special Frieza themed equipment as the main reward, given 20% blast attack, strike defense, and special move damage. Like, honestly, strike defense wasn't the best defensive stat, but it still made this piece extremely popular for blue units that needed survivability. The month ended with the 7th Ultra Space Time Summon banner, featuring a new Super Saiyan Bardock, Lord Chill, and Super Saiyan 2 Goku. The main star of the banner was obviously Blue Super Saiyan Bardock, who instantly became one of the most impactful characters in Legends history. His entire kit revolved around Super Saiyan synergy, introducing a mechanic that would go on to define PvP for months, if not years honestly. Like, his support type buff was just insane. He granted every allied Super Saiyan 20% damage, 30% crit rate, and 70% crit damage. A buff that was actually bugged on tap attacks. It was actually 700% crit damage and not 70. It was just insane. You could literally like tap attack people to death with that. Like, it was just crazy. So yeah, with Bardock support, units like Super Gogeta were just doing so much more damage. It was crazy. Like, sure, the Holy Trinity wasn't quite there yet since it was missing Purple Broly, but bro, honestly, just Gogeta and Bardock were already like a pretty nasty combo at the time. And Purple Super Saiyan Gotenks was still pretty insane too, and a Super Saiyan. So you could run him with Bardock and Gogeta, and you had like the first version of the Holy Trinity right there. Gotenks dominated the early game, Gogeta dominated the late game, and Bardock was there in the middle, just supporting everyone like crazy. And bro, Bardock himself wasn't just like a support. His own stats were pretty solid at the time, and his main ability increased his card draw speed and gave him his ultimate arts card that restored ki while also doing some decent damage. And his blue cards also applied bleed and reduced the enemy's card draw speed. Like, those were actually some pretty decent debuffs for the time. Then came Lord Chill, who was the first Lineage of Evil super type unit. He was designed to counter the new wave of Super Saiyans, and his kit reflected that perfectly. When defeated, Chill reduced all damage received from Super Saiyans by 80% for 15 timer counts, which was just like, honestly, this was just disgusting. Like, against a Super Saiyan team, bro, you were literally invincible once Chill died. Like, it was crazy. And could, as you would guess, completely save your team in clutch situations. His main ability also buffed all Lineage of Evil's allies, giving them 35% damage and 70% Vanish Gold recovery speed. So like, yeah, this was actually pretty crazy. And his Z ability also buffed that same tag. So yeah, on release, you could actually run a team with him, Final Form Frieza, and Cooler. And yeah, honestly, it was like the first true Lineage of Evil family team in the game. The banner also included Super Saiyan Goku, who served as the game's first defensive Yellow Saiyan. His cover change reduced incoming damage by 30%, while also giving him 20% more damage for 15 timer counts. Then his main ability not only restored 30% of his health, but also cleansed him of all the enemy's debuffs. Like, he wasn't a top tier unit, but he finally filled the long missing role of like a tank Saiyan, who could protect glass cannon units like like Bardock or Green Super Saiyan Goku. Like, it was actually pretty good. The banner also featured 2 new extreme units, Super Saiyan Vegeta and Super Saiyan Trunks. Like, honestly, they weren't anything too crazy, but they had pretty decent Z ability buffs. Legends also dropped a new trailer, teasing an upcoming collab between Legends and the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, which came with a Broly pre-release login bonus campaign, which confirmed that Legends was officially collaborating with the new movie. For 14 days straight, players received Chrono Crystals for a total of 1000, multiple Sparking tickets, and energy tickets, some of the most generous rewards we had seen since launch. I still remember players speculating that both Broly and Gogeta would be the headliners of the Christmas or New Year's banners this year, but I personally felt like it was too soon for Gogeta Blue, as the God Key wasn't even a tag yet, and 2 Gogetas in the span of 2 months would have been maybe a little bit too much. Bro, where was my God Vegito? The month of December started with a new Legends Rising banner, this time focused on Hybrid Saiyan characters, but unlike the last few banners, this one was clearly a trap banner, just there to drain your Chrono Crystals, before the long-awaited Broly movie celebration. The banner featured Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, Super Saiyan Trunks, Super Trunks, Kid Trunks, and Kid Goten. And honestly, the banner was not that great. Like, the strongest unit here was probably Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, who, don't get me wrong, was still pretty decent. He was the sole reason the Hybrid Saiyan team was even a thing. Like, without him, the entire tag couldn't be played in PvP. His damage was still solid, and his last man standing unique ability could clutch some wins. But he just wasn't on the level of recent units like Super Saiyan 3 Goku or Super Gogeta. And I guess Goten still had decent damage output, especially when paired with Kid Trunks, but he brought almost nothing else to the team, and his reliance on Kid Trunks made him hard to use outside of like the Hybrid Saiyan tag. And since Hybrid Saiyans were not as competitive at the time, his usefulness was limited. The only semi-viable unit in that lineup was Super Saiyan Trunks, but even that was a stretch. He could technically fit into a Super Saiyan team alongside Bardock because he was red, but that was only for the players who didn't have Super Gogeta. Like, if you had Super Gogeta, that guy was just completely useless. Beyond the banner itself, they also dropped a few couple things that day. A new hard mode for the second part of the book 4 of the story, a list of the top 20 PvP characters from the last Super Spacetime duel, which gave us a glimpse at what units could get buffed in a future Balanced Changes update. 2 days later, Legends dropped a Google Play Awards Thank You Login bonus, which celebrated Legends being featured on the Play Store's Best of 2018 list. Players received a total of 3000 Chrono Crystals, including a unique 2000 bonus on the very first day. It also gave a guaranteed Sparking ticket, and other small rewards spread across 14 logins. The fact that the logins didn't have to be consecutive was actually pretty cool, so players had until January 31st, 2019 to claim everything. Alongside the new login bonus campaign, Bandai released a small patch update that fixed a major bug involving Super Saiyan Bardock's support ability. Like, tap attacks were buffed way more than they were intended to, like you could genuinely tap attack people to death with a super type buff because of that bug. Legends then spammed the game with more Legends Rising banners, just to try and empty everyone's wallets before the real big banners. Around the same time, a major app update went live, introducing several UI improvements and minor gameplay tweaks. A complete redesign of the main menu layout, story and events were now split into separate tabs, the equipment selection screen was changed so that usable equipments appeared at the top, the ability to preview upgraded special moves directly from the summon screen, a free unique equipment, the King Vegeta equip, which could be equipped to any Vegeta unit for a boost to critical rate, blast defense, and attack, a new PvP season offering an exclusive equipment piece for sagas from the movie's characters, which was actually not bad. Like, it gave blast attack, strike defense, and strike attack, so generally a decent equip for Janemba or Gogeta. A new Extreme Yellow Bardock Scout battle, letting players farm 200 crystals through the usual EX stage, which was actually pretty decent. And yeah, with the new equipments and some data mined assets, it was pretty clear by that point that the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie collab banner was right around the corner. After weeks of build up, Dragon Ball Super Broly finally arrived in Dragon Ball Legends 2 days later, and with him came one of the most impactful updates the game had seen since launch. The new story event let us farm a new Wrathful Broly, who once fully maxed out was actually pretty good. He was a red mini-type fighter, his special move dealt major impact damage and ignored 50% of the enemy's cover damage cut for 25 timer counts, which was actually not bad with the regen and android teams still running around, 2 teams who had characters with some pretty nasty cover changes abilities. His green card boosted his strike strike damage by 20% and debuffed the enemies, making them receive 20% more blast damage. Then his main ability drew his ultimate arts card and healed 20% of his HP. The ultimate itself dealt massive impact damage and had a 20% chance to feint the enemy, while also having blast armor, which was actually pretty nasty back then, as I'll explain when we'll go over the new summonable Broly. As for his unique abilities, the first one gave him 5% damage inflicted every time he used a strike card for 10 timer counts, and an extra 5% damage if the enemy team included a Goku or Vegeta, so he could ramp up pretty quickly when facing a Goku or Vegeta enemy. His second unique ability made him one of the best support type bruisers in the game. Every time you switched him out, he gave allies from the sagas from the movie Stag 20% damage and 20% damage reduction for 15 timer counts, a pretty insane support type buff, making him a pretty decent option for the movie team. As for the new summonable Broly, the new Broly was everything players had expected and more. For some reason, everything about him felt like it was pushed way beyond what any other unit at the time could do. He had the highest base stats in the game by a wide margin, making him so tanky and letting him hit like a truck even without many buffs. Like, his strike cards had blast armor, which was completely cracked back then. At the time, blast armor still restored your vanishing Gauge because the game counted it as you getting hit, so you could literally vanish, use a strike attack, tank like an enemy's blast attack, recover your vanish, and just keep coming like nothing happened. Like, that single mechanic made Broly one of the hardest characters to deal with in PvP history. Then there was his green card, which not only reduced the enemy's ki, but also force switched them out of battle, something that made the previous Broly pretty broken. So imagine that on a Broly that's even better. Like, it was just insane. It was both a defensive and offensive tool at the same time, letting Broly interrupt your setup and completely ruin your rotations. And bro, his blue card was just as broken. It couldn't be stopped by most blue cards in the game, meaning even if your opponent tried to counter with a projectile type special move, it was like Blue Frieza's special moves. Like, it just literally cancelled them, like it and went through the other players' special moves. Like, it was ridiculous. And it also destroyed the enemy's hand, deleting all of their cards after impact. Like, it was just insane, bro. And since he was a transforming unit, Broly had two main abilities. His first one healed him for a massive chunk of health and buffed his damage, which made him incredibly hard to kill. Since his stats were already sky high, he also gained card draw speed, type neutrality, and other insane buffs after transforming. Then his second main ability gave him an ultimate arts card, making him even to this day the only transforming unit in the game with an ultimate arts card. To put it in perspective, Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Super Gogeta, who had both released only a month or two earlier and were seen as some of the best units in the game at the time, didn't even come close to him. They were pretty much just stats, and even though their stats were phenomenal for the time, their kits just looked so undertuned compared to Broly's encyclopedia of a passive. Like, bro, he just had so many more lines in almost every single part of his kit. So much that it honestly felt like Broly wasn't supposed to release that early. He was clearly years ahead of his time, both in terms of design and raw power. Like, he was just a complete monster. But if him being broken wasn't enough, this is the time the Holy Trinity was born. To this day, most veteran players still agree that this was the strongest PvP team the game has ever seen. The trio consisted of Blue Super Saiyan Bardock, Red Super Gogeta, and Purple Super Saiyan Broly. Broly was, like I explained earlier, by far the best unit in the game. Then Super Gogeta was still one of the hardest hitting units in the entire game, with massive strike damage and ki recovery. And then there was Blue Bardock, who tied the entire team together as arguably the best support type unit Legends ever had. Bardock's ability was the core of the team's insanity. He gave crit rate, crit damage, and overall damage buffs to all Super Saiyan allies every time he swapped out. So when he tagged out, Gogeta and Broly both became monsters, dishing out so many critical hits that could wipe out entire teams in a few combos. Like, the damage these guys were doing with Bardock's support was just insane. And Broly's high stats and tankiness meant he could dominate literally anything except like yellow units. And that's where Gogeta came in. He was red, so he could literally just take out those yellow units that Broly couldn't. So yeah, that team was literally impossible to counter. Like, literally. The synergy between them was so good that the PvP meta literally became the Holy Trinity or nothing. Like, if you didn't have Bardock, Gogeta, and Broly, you simply couldn't compete. Every high ranked player ran them. They were the three most played characters in the entire game at the time. The entire PvP ladder was filled with the same team over and over again, and there was literally no reliable counter to them. It was the first team in Legends history to truly terrorize PvP. The Holy Trinity wasn't just strong and broken, it was literally the meta. If you weren't running it, you were losing. That simple. As for Broly's banner, it featured 5 characters. The new transforming Broly, who was literally the best unit in the game, the old Dragon Ball Z Broly, who was outdated by that point and arguably one of the weakest characters in the game, Cooler, who had recently received balance changes but wasn't quite meta, and for a limited time, the main Broly banner also offered 999 Z power per pull instead of the usual 600, but only for 2 days. But even though Broly was absolutely insane, it wasn't really worth chasing dupes unless you were like a massive Broly fan. Like, this was before the dupe system changed. One copy was more than enough to completely dominate PvP with him. 4 days later, and Legends dropped some pretty big news. It was officially announced that the level cap would soon be raised to level 2000. This was pretty massive news at the time, since it meant that every unit, including the free-to-play Broly and all of the old Sparking characters, were about to get stronger. But it also meant that players would need to start stockpiling materials fast. They also dropped a new Legends Rising banner that same day, the Legends Regeneration banner. The featured units were Purple Spur Janemba, who was still very good thanks to his green card and overall versatility, Red Perfect Cell, who was surprisingly still decent on the regen team, Green Fat Boo, who was still one of the best tanks in the game, Piccolo, who was still actually pretty good on the regen team, and Yellow Demon King Piccolo, who was a balanced but outdated unit by that point, which was actually pretty crazy as the guy released not even 2 months ago. So in short, the banner had good units, but like I said previously, the Holy Trinity was the meta. So yeah, this was, as you would guess, a pretty hard skip. Another 2 days later, and we got some new V-Jump leaks, officially confirming that both God Goku and Beerus were finally coming to Legends, and by the end of the year, which meant one thing: they were either part of the Christmas banner or possibly the New Year's banner. Like, this was pretty hype, as they would be the first God Key units in the game, opening up the door for Gogeta Blue. The next day, and Legends dropped some Holiday Login bonus campaigns. The new Holiday Login bonus campaign started on December 1st and lasted for 19 days, giving players various rewards like Chrono Crystals, Zeni, and Soul Materials, but the key detail here was the Day 6 rewards, a Super Soul 4, set to be distributed on December 26th. Since Super Soul 4s were only required for the upcoming 2000 level class, meant that the update had to hit before or on Christmas, so that the Login rewards would line up properly. Like, the 2000 level class had to be there for them to give out those souls, so yeah, it only made sense. In total, the holiday campaign offered around 450 Chrono Crystals, which was unfortunately less than what players expected at the time, but it was better than nothing. On Christmas Eve, players were also given the choice to select their Christmas Day rewards. They could pick between 2 bonuses out of a list that included 100 Chrono Crystals, Silver Bells, Zeni, Master Pack Summon Tickets, Z Power for Red Spur Goku, Red Spur Vegeta, Red Spur Trunks, or Android 18 or 17, and as you would guess, for most players, the choice was pretty obvious. The Chrono Crystals and the Z Powers were the best picks, especially since a Christmas banner was probably on the way. Like the V-Jump leaks promised, the New Year Step Up banner was finally here, and just when we thought they couldn't pull something crazier than the Black Friday banner, Dragon Ball Legends went all in. This new banner introduced 4 new characters: Super Saiyan God Goku, Beerus, Kaioken Goku, and Saiyan Saga Vegeta. You're all familiar with the format now, but the thing that was new here is that Beerus was not featured in the normal banner pool. You could only get him through the guaranteed Sparking tickets, where he had a 20% pull rate alongside all of the featured Sparkins. This was just so stupid, and I remember people being pretty mad about it at the time, since it forced players to go deep into the banner just for a chance to get Beerus, who was actually not a Legends limited character at the time, just a ticket exclusive character, and honestly not even that great. But other than that, the banner had some of the best value Legends had ever offered. You were almost guaranteed several new units per rotation, along with dozens of other old Sparkins that had been thrown into the pool, including Purple Broly, Super Gogeta, and Super Saiyan Bardock, and many others. So yeah, the banner was crazy, and was seen by most players as the best banner the game had released up to that point. As for the new units, Super Saiyan God Goku introduced the God Ki tag into the game, and his kit was extremely well-rounded for the time. Nothing absolutely broken like Purple Broly, but still pretty decent. He started the fight by nullifying all abnormal conditions twice, meaning he couldn't be poisoned, paralyzed, or fainted right away, something that could actually be useful back then, with characters like Chilled and Frieza running around. He also nullified attribute downgrades twice, so it was actually pretty hard to debuff that guy. Then his main ability gave him his ultimate arts card, which cancelled enemies' buffs on hit. Like, that alone was actually pretty crazy, because units like Super Saiyan Bardock and Purple Broly relied heavily on stacking buffs buffs mid-fight. He even had a clutch comeback mechanic. Once both his allies were defeated, he restored 30% HP and gained strike buffs, turning him into a late game monster. And he also had blast armor on his strike cards. And I'm pretty sure you could still replenish vanishing gold from blast armor. So yeah, this was just so broken, bro, so broken. As for his stats, his offensive stats were pretty balanced, his defensive stats were pretty strong, and he had a solid key recovery, making him one of the best all-around red units in the game. He didn't completely replace Red Spur Gogeta since he didn't have the Super Saiyan tag, but outside of the Holy Trinity team, yeah, God Goku was definitely the best red unit in the game. Green Beerus was the first quote-unquote Legends limited character in Legends. He was a support type unit and wasn't designed to be the main damage dealer, but instead to completely disrupt the opponent's game plan. Every time he entered the battlefield, he sealed the enemy's main ability for 10 timer counts, and he could do it up to 3 times. That meant no transformations, no ultimates, and no healing for a huge portion of the fight. Back then, this was pretty good. It could literally shut down transforming units like Broly before they could even transform. Like, if only that guy wasn't green. Like, if he was yellow, it would have probably been over for Broly. But I guess they didn't want to have the only counter to Broly be locked behind tickets. So they just let Broly terrorize PvP for months. Like, honestly, I don't know, bro. He also increased the enemy's blast arts cost every time he switched in, slowing their combos and applied a debuff that made them take even more blast damage. On top of that, his ultimate's arts card destroyed every single card in your opponent's hand while dealing huge AoE damage. That combination of card destruction and ability ceiling made him one of the most oppressive support type units ever released to date. But even after all of that, I just don't know, bro. I personally pulled him at the time, and from what I remember, he just wasn't that good in game. Like, he felt pretty weak. Maybe I just didn't know how to properly use him. Like, his kit wasn't like some sort of no-brain character, like you had to understand what you were doing with him. But I feel like his lack of teams didn't really help. At launch, the only other God Key character in the entire game was Super Saiyan God Goku, so yeah, Beerus didn't really have a proper team. And like I said earlier, the fact that he was green didn't help, because like his main ability cancellation was only really good on like transforming units. As for Blue Kaioken Goku, he started as base Goku, but his main ability transformed him into Kaioken for 60 timer counts. Once transformed, he gained massive strike buffs, increased Vanishing Gojo recovery by 35%, and could chain combos endlessly thanks to his boosted ki recovery. Well, the downside was, as you would guess, the fact that he took more damage after transforming, so you had to be very aggressive with him, like hitting hard before your own buffs got you killed. His green card gave him strike damage and combo extension, and his blue card, the Kaioken Kamehameha, hit like a truck, especially once he transformed. The smartest way to play him was to save his main ability until he absolutely needed the burst damage, since he could finish fights on his own once he activated it. Like, he was just crazy. Like, Kaioken Goku quickly became one of the strongest blue units in the game, rivaling even the then dominant Blue Super Saiyan Bardock in terms of raw offense. Like, on mono blue teams, he was practically unstoppable. He embodied that risk-reward playstyle perfectly. You either melted your opponent or got melted yourself. Green Vegeta was a melee type unit. His main ability restored 25% HP, gave him 30% strike damage, and improved his ki recovery, which let him extend combos more easily. But his most unique mechanic was endurance, the ability to quote-unquote revive once per battle with 20% health when defeated. That ability was actually pretty broken, as he could tank a rising rush with it, and this guy was surprisingly more tanky than Hercule, so it made his endurance pretty annoying to deal with. His green card was also absolutely busted. It applied a huge debuff to the enemy, while at the same time buffing Vegeta's own damage by nearly 40%, and you could combo directly out of it. If you drew 2 of them back to back, it was literally over. Those buffs stacked and the opponent was dead. But the crazy part here is that no matter how good those new units were, they were still not as good as Purple Broly. Like, he was still seen by most players as the best unit in the game. They also that same day dropped the update that increased the level cap. The level cap officially increased from 1500 to 2000, with new Super Soul 4s required to upgrade units. These could be farmed in the part 2 of the story mode or bought in the exchange shop. This update also added a Z medal exchange shop like those dupe coins were finally usable for something, increased soul stock limits from 9,999 to 99,999. Like, this was a pretty big improvement. A new PvP season with updated PvP rewards, doubling Chrono Crystals rewards for top ranks, as I guess some sort of like holiday gift, a new farmable equipment that was actually pretty cracked with the right RNG, as it let you basically stack 3 buffs of the exact same stat, but like I said, rerolls weren't a thing yet, so you needed an insane amount of RNG to be able to pull the same stat not only 3 times, but also with decent stats, a new event that rewarded Z-Power for the yellow Extreme Vegeta, and obviously a new batch of equipments were actually pretty insane for the new Goku and Vegeta, giving them exactly what they needed. To close out the year, Legends dropped one of the craziest banners the game had ever seen to date, the New Year Rising banner, alongside the very first Happy New Year's Happy Bags. This was the first time Legends had ever done something like this, and honestly it caught everyone by surprise. The idea was simple. The banner could only be summoned on using special tickets, which you could get either from a free login bonus or from the Happy Bag packs sold in the shop. There was no Chrono Crystal version, it was like a tickets only banner, and every single summon on it guaranteed a sparking character. At the time this was absolutely unheard of. It was basically a well exclusive banner, but with some of the best value we had ever seen. The banner itself featured 20 sparking units, all of which were actually pretty recent characters, not some random garbage sparking like the early Legends Rising banners used to do. You had Super Gogeta, Kaioken Goku, Purple Broly, Super Saiyan God Goku, Green Vegeta, Final Form Frieza, Goku Black, Majin Vegeta, Janemba, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and Green Bardock, all in one banner. It was genuinely insane. Like bro, if you were missing any meta unit from the past few months, this banner literally fixed that in one go. You could pull the 2 strongest characters in the game, Broly and Kaioken Goku, off the same banner. Like, this was just insane. And even if you didn't pull exactly who you wanted, it almost didn't matter, since every ticket guaranteed a sparking unit, meaning you were walking away with something good every single time. And obviously alongside the banner came the very first Happy Bag packs. At the time there were 3 versions: the blue bag for $8, which gave you 2 tickets, training items and skip tickets, the silver bag for $25, which gave you 6 tickets, more training materials and energy, and finally the gold bag, which was the big one. For $80 you got 20 sparking tickets, 500 of every Rising Soul, 70 Super Souls, and hundreds of skip and energy tickets. And the craziest part is that even though it was expensive, it was kind of a fair deal for those who were already planning to spend money. And everyone still got at least 1 free ticket from the login bonus. So even free-to-play players got a guaranteed sparking, which was actually pretty generous for the time. But for the players who went all in and bought the gold bag, yeah bro, they ate good that day. But beyond just being hype, this banner was actually a turning point for the game. Up until then, every banner was built around Chrono Crystals, meaning free-to-play players could summon on them. But the Happy Bags showed that Bandai was ready to start pushing real money-only banners. And the good or bad part is that it worked. The value was so high that a lot of free-to-play players, yeah, pulled up the credit card. Pretty crazy how both Legends and Dokkan dropped a banner at the same time that was so high value that it literally took many players' free-to-play version of it. At the same time though, it did spark a bit of controversy. This was technically the first pay-to-win banner in Legends history. Free players only got 1 pull, while paying players could instantly summon 20 times and walk away with a box full of meta units. It was definitely a moment that split the community a bit, but most people agreed that at least this time the pricing was fair and the value was undeniable. Like, regular spending players could afford that if they wanted to. It wasn't something like exclusive to Wells and rich people. Overall, I think this is probably what made the devs really enforce the monetization in that game. They probably saw how much money they made from that banner, and I guess it was just over afterwards. Like, we know gacha games plan things like way ahead of times. Thanks to Umatsu, we know that Dokkan's schedule is planned a year in advance, so it wouldn't surprise me if it's the same thing for Legends. And what came exactly a year after that banner? Probably the most pay-to-win shit that ever released in a gacha game. The first version of the Zenkai system. The month of January started with a new Ultra Spacetime banner, this time focused entirely on the Future tag. This banner introduced 3 new Sparkings: Future Super Saiyan Gohan, Super Saiyan 2 Future Trunks, and Future Mai, alongside 2 new extreme units. At first glance, the lineup looked pretty alright. but when you looked closer, the color spread of the 3 new Sparkins perfectly countered the Holy Trinity. The new yellow Future Gohan countered purple Broly, blue Trunks countered red Gogeta, and green Mai countered blue Bardock. That new team was exactly what the meta needed, a team that could actually threaten the Holy Trinity while not being overly toxic. Also, fun fact, but when they first teased Future Gohan, many players including myself thought that he was going to be a one-armed Future Gohan, which I'm pretty sure would have been a first for a mobile game, as even Dokkan didn't have a one-armed Future Gohan at the time.
It looks like the next banner that's going to be dropping on the game is actually, in fact, going to be almost looking like another Hybrid Saiyans mix right here. So it's going to be Future Gohan. Now, please note, Legends did it right here. Future Gohan only has one freaking arm. So, mad props to them to getting that right on the first try.
So yeah, as bad as it sounds, we were pretty disappointed to see that he had both his arms. Anyways, the 3 new units were actually pretty solid. Like, not in meta break-in, but they definitely had potential. Future Gohan was probably the one with the most value. He could fit on 3 major tags: Hybrid Saiyans, Super Saiyans, and Future. His kit made him a reliable fighter who could hold his own on any of those teams, especially alongside Bardock's crit buffs. His Luke card slapped the enemy with a debuff that made them take 20% more strike damage. His main ability that he could use after 25 timer counts gave him his ultimate arts card. Literally nothing else. No heal, no utility, just his ultimate arts card. And how good was that ultimate? Well, it was actually pretty decent. Not only did it deal solid damage, but it also removed all of your opponent's buffs in case they survived. His green cards then restored 10% of his health, gave him 20% strike damage for 20 timer counts, and cleansed him of all of his debuffs if you had the Trunks as a battle member. So a very good green card. As for his unique abilities, the first one gave him 40% strike damage for the whole battle if you had a Future Saga tag ally, which coupled with his Z ability, which gave 26% strike damage to the Future tag. Yeah, you can guess that his strike cards were doing some pretty decent damage. Then his second unique ability is really what made that guy pretty cracked. When Gohan died, he gave some insane buffs to his allies. 30% strike damage, 35% key recovery, card draw speed, and even more damage if they were from the Future tag. Like, this was just insane. And what really made him fit so well on so many teams, even though he had some pretty heavy Future Saga tag restrictions. Blue's percentile Trunks was basically the range counterpart to Gohan, and another pretty solid unit. He was a range type unit. His blue cards debuffed the enemy's key recovery by 20% for 20 timer counts. His main ability then gave 20% damage to all allies and cleansed the debuffs of your entire team, which was just like, this was crazy. Then his green card was pretty simple. It just gave 20% blast damage for 20 timer counts, but since his whole kit already gave him like a ton of blast damage, yeah, after some green cards that guy could look pretty disgusting. His Z ability gave 26% blast defense to the Future tag, which was actually pretty decent as it helped the whole team tank better, and the Future tag had like a lot of glass cannons at the time. His first unique ability was his bread and butter. Every time Trunks entered the battlefield, he got 40% blast damage for 10 timer counts, restored his own health by 10%, and got 20 ki whenever he evaded an attack with a vanishing step. Like, this was pretty crazy, as you could switch him out, vanish, get some ki back, and just demolish the enemy with his blast cards. Like, combined with Future Gohan's support, this guy could genuinely be an absolute monster. His second unique ability was a last man standing ability, giving him ki recovery and blast damage for each downed ally, and additional buffs for downed ally from the Future Saga tag. So yeah, that guy was clearly meant to be run alongside Future Gohan. Like, this was literally one of the best duos in the game. And then there was Mai, who ended up being the most interesting unit of the 3. Even though she was technically the weakest unit stat-wise, her green card was absolutely insane. It stunned the enemies, destroyed 2 of their cards, and reduced their card draw speed by 1 for 10 timer counts. That might not sound too crazy on paper, but if she pulled 2 green cards back to back, she could literally lock the opponent out of their hand and keep them stuck for an entire combo. Like, you've got to understand, like, people quickly realized how busted that was. Like, bro, she could literally just knock you out. Like, you literally couldn't do anything if you just pulled 2 green cards back to back. Like, it was crazy. The only reason why she wasn't like a top tier unit was because of how unreliable it was to draw like multiple green cards consistently. But even then, she was easily one of the most annoying support type units in the game when used correctly. Her main ability and one of her unique abilities also gave damage to the whole team. So if you were willing to pull all of the 3 new units, their buffs combined together could become pretty ridiculous very quickly. As for the 2 new extreme units, they were, as you would guess, nothing game changing, but their Z abilities were pretty insane for a time. Like, they were for sure some of the best bench units for the Android tag. Altogether, the banner was pretty good, but none of the new units were really like Z tier units like Broly or Kaioken Goku, at least like alone. But if you were able to pull all of the 3 new units, yeah, that was like a completely different story. Like, their synergy was just so insane that they were actually able to rival the Holy Trinity. But the problem was that literally no one still had Kern Crystals after the crazy banners they released at the end of the previous year, and there were still a bunch of units from the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie who were missing, like Super Saiyan God Vegeta or Gogeta Blue, who were definitely on the way. So unless we were like a Future Saga stan like me, yeah, this banner was a hard skip. The banner also released with a bunch of small updates, a new login campaign that lasted several weeks, giving out a total of 17 tickets, 2 guaranteed sparking summons and 3 regular summons if they logged in every day, a brand new PvP season with the rerun of the Extreme Yellow Trunks and the unique Hybrid Saiyan Gold equip, as well as your typical Scout Battle event for the farmable extreme unit. The book 8 of the part 2 of the horror mode was added, officially wrapping up part 2 of the story and setting up part 3. A week later, and Legends got a new Master Packs banner. It came with double sparking and extreme rates, giving a 10% sparking chance per pull instead of the usual 5%. And the pull was pretty massive, featuring dozens of characters from the game's first 6 months. But the only true top tier unit in the banner was Super Saiyan Bardock. So if you didn't have him yet, this was a great chance to pull him for free using the free tickets they gave out. Because yeah, since most of the units in there were already power crept, the general advice was to just summon using the free tickets. Like, those Master Packs banners weren't going away anytime soon. Like, they're still in game to this day. They also brought back the Legends Road Kid Goku event, which now included EX battles 5 and 6, as well as a second challenge battle. Players could once again farm Legends Road medals and exchange them for various rewards. But the big difference this time was that everything in the event had been updated for the new level 2000 cap. If you wanted to clear the hardest stages, you pretty much had to have a full Legends Road team, maxed out to 2000, since the event was actually pretty difficult, at least compared to the original release, which was already pretty hard, if you remember, so yeah. This was bad. Farming this event was also worth it, because they added Masters Pack 2 tickets to the exchange shop. You could grind those for free summons on the new banner, and I'm sure a lot of players pulled Super Saiyan Bardock from those free tickets. The update also introduced 2 brand new equipments. The first one was designed for Dragon Ball Saga characters. It gave up to 15% blast defense, 18% strike attack, and up to 10% strike defense for Dragon Ball Saga battle member, meaning you could stack up to 30% total strike defense if you run a full Dragon Ball Saga team. Like, it definitely didn't make like the tag meta or anything, but it was still good to have in case that tag actually got some decent premium units in the future. The second new equipment gave up to 15% strike defense, 20% blast attack, and a conditional 30% strike damage against Saiyans for 40 timer counts. That might not sound like much, but considering most of the meta was made up of Saiyan units, Kaioken Goku, the Holy Trinity, the new Future Saga units, this equipment was basically made to give yellow units, especially Legends Road Kid Goku, a chance in this meta. The update also added new Charlotte upgrade missions, which were mostly just free rewards. Like, all you had to do was fully soul boost Charlotte, unlock 300 boost panels, and raise him to level 2000, something most players had already done anyways. Then came something interesting. A new character usage ranking chart was released, showing the most and least used characters in the current PvP season. The top 3 were exactly what you'd expect: Super Saiyan Bardock, Purple Broly, and Super Gogeta. What a surprise! The Holy Trinity was still running the game. But what is surprising is that the blue legendary Super Saiyan Broly was still being used by some players for fun, I guess, so he unfortunately likely wouldn't get a balance change anytime soon. So yeah, that unfortunately meant that he would remain completely outdated for quite some time, or so we thought. As part of the Broly movie's US release, we also had a new Logate bonus campaign themed around the film's worldwide debut. The rewards were actually not that bad, like players could collect up to 700 Chrono Crystals, along with like your typical skip tickets, Zenny, and training items. Players even speculated that the event might be teasing the upcoming release of Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta, predicting that he'd likely arrive once the movie finished premiering globally, because by that point like the movie would have been released like everywhere. Well, little did they know, bro, little did they know. But yeah, the game was clearly building up to something big. They also added a new event centered around future Trunks. It came with some new equipments, but only one of them is really worth going over, as it was just completely cracked. It gave up to 25% blast and strike defense, 25% blast and strike attack, and even base health, all in one single equipment. It was genuinely the best equipment Legends had ever released to date. But there was one catch: only green Extreme Class units could use it, which was actually kind of disappointing, and at first, most players thought that it was too restrictive to be worth farming, since the only decent character who could use that equip at the time was the new Extreme Android 17. But after some quick calculations, players realized just how broken it actually was. Even with an average roll, this equip basically turned any green Extreme unit into essentially a sparking unit, at least stat-wise. Like, the stats were just so insane that it literally completely erased the usual gap between rarities. So while that equipment was technically restricted, it was just a matter of time before they released an Extreme Class unit that could actually make the best out of it. A few days later, new V-Jump leaks dropped, and this time they confirmed that Kel and Caulifla were coming to Legends. The translations revealed some early details about how both characters were going to play. Kel was described as a disruptive type unit who could destroy the opponent's hand and interrupt combos, and Caulifla was described as your typical offensive unit. But what was really interesting about her kit was that she gained damage every time the enemy switched out, as long as there was another female character on her team. So essentially, the more you swapped against her, the stronger she got. It was, I guess, a pretty clever way to try and counter not only the Holy Trinity, who relied on Bardock's swap support, but also the new Future Saga team. The scans didn't mention exactly when Kel and Caulifla were going to release, but considering the pattern of previous V-Jump leaks, yeah, we knew they were coming soon, probably within the next month. Not long after Kel and Caulifla V-Jump leaks, we got another Legends Rising banner, this time featuring Final Form Cooler, Zamasu, and Bojack. Zamasu and Bojack immediately caught everyone's attention, not just because they looked incredible, but because both of them were designed to directly counter the Super Saiyan meta, which at the time was still completely dominated by the Holy Trinity. Blue Final Form Cooler was a melee-type unit, and he was clearly made to be run on the Lineage of Evil team. On that tag, Cooler not only had more damage and key recovery, but the cost of his strike and blast cards were also reduced. Then, when he swapped out, he granted additional buffs to all Lineage of Evil allies, more damage and critical rate. So this guy was essentially just the Super Saiyan Bardock of the Frieza clan. He also had blast armor on his strike cards, letting him power through blast arts just like Broly, which as you would guess made him pretty terrifying in PvP. Like, that alone made him one of the most annoying units to face at the time. With Cooler, the Lineage of Evil tag could finally stand a chance against the Holy Trinity. Zamasu was a defensive type unit and came with the God Key, Future, and Regeneration tags, which was a pretty big deal, as it finally gave all three of those teams a true defensive wall. Beerus was still seen as underwhelming at the time, but pairing him with Zamasu and Red Person God Goku suddenly made the God Key team at the very least viable. On Future, he could tank hits for Goku Black or Trunks, and on Regen, he provided the sustain and durability the team had been lacking. He wasn't a heavy damage dealer, but his survivability and attack flexibility made him one of the most valuable additions Legends had seen in months. Like, the guy was honestly pretty disgusting. His main ability restored all of your team's health by 25%, while also cleansing them of all of their debuffs. Then one of his unique abilities gave him additional damage against Saiyan or Hybrid Saiyan tag units, which were most of the meta at the time, but what really made that guy cracked was his Immortal Body ability. He restored 10% of the damage he received after an enemy's attack was over, while not only having a 40% damage reduction, cover change ability, but endurance. Like, brother, the guy was extremely tanky, had sustainability, and then endurance. This was just ridiculous. Facing him genuinely felt like facing a final boss. He took forever to die, and once he died, he just came back to life. Like, this guy single-handedly brought back the Regent tag into the meta, and you can guess that the team was ridiculous with him. Yellow Bojack was a range type fighter who got stronger the longer he stayed on the field, similar to Yellow's Vegeta. His blast damage increased with timer counts, and he dealt extra damage against Super Saiyans, which made him an instant threat to the Holy Trinity. But what made him stand out was his comeback mechanic. When both of his allies were defeated, Bojack restored a large portion of his health and gained massive blast damage buffs, essentially transforming him into a last man standing nuke. He even had a barrier type green card, like Android 17's, that could block almost everything in the game. Like, this was just a nasty thing to have on such a crazy damage dealer, so he was an incredible Super Saiyan counter. Overall, this new banner was one of the most stacked banners the game had ever seen. Bojack, Zamasu, and Cooler all filled critical holes in the meta, and each helped their tags significantly. The banner also featured the limited time 999 Z-Power per pull bonus. With those new characters and the previous ones we got earlier that month, yeah, the meta was actually starting to look pretty diverse. Like, the Holy Trinity was still insane, but not as dominant as it was a month ago. We also got a new PvP season that same day. The season introduced a new event limited equipment piece designed specifically for Extreme Frieza Force units. At first glance, it didn't look like much. It gave up to 18% strike defense, strike and blast damage per Frieza Force member, but in practice, it was actually pretty cracked. This new equip turned Green Extreme Midoriya into an absolute monster. Players quickly realized that if you run a Frieza Force team with yellow Final Form Frieza, green Midoriya, and one of the other Frieza Force character, Midoriya could literally buff Frieza to the point of one comboing Purple Broly, the most dominant unit in the game at the time. It was yet another example of how little by little the game was starting to balance itself out, by giving more value to old units and creative team building, instead of just relying on new releases alone. Outside of the new equipment, Masters Pack 2 tickets were added to the PvP rewards, alongside the Masters Pack 1 tickets, meaning players could finally earn summons on newer characters like Super Saiyan Bardock, who at that point was still one of the most valuable units in the game. Legends also received another story update, with some new chapters. The newly added Chapter 8, Book 2 of the Part 3 became known as one of the best stages in the game to farm EXP. At the very end of January, Legends dropped another Ultra Spacetime banner, featuring Super Saiyan 2 Caulifla, Super Saiyan Kel in her Berserk form, and Super Saiyan Kaba. Caulifla was the main highlight, and her kit really showed how much Legends had evolved in terms of character design at that point. She was a purple melee type unit with a very aggressive playstyle, built entirely around keeping pressure on the opponent. Her main ability restored 50k on activation, boosted her strike damage by 40% for 15 timer counts, and even cleansed her of all of her debuffs, meaning that things like paralysis or reduced defenses didn't slow her down. Her green cards also gave her an extra 20% strike damage boost, and obviously stacked very well with her main ability. Then her first unique ability gave her a massive 40% strike damage increase specifically against Saiyans, which at the time was basically the entire PvP meta. Combine that with her second unique ability, which restored her ki by 30 and granted her up to 45% strike damage every time an enemy swapped characters. And you literally had a unit that punished one of the core defensive mechanics of the game. If you switched out to survive, she literally just got stronger. That made her just insane when paired with like other female fighters, because every tag switch basically made her hit harder and harder. And since her Z ability boosted female warriors tag unit strike attack by 26%, she was pretty much a must for that tag. Kel was a red defensive type unit. Her main ability granted her 10% more damage every time she was attacked, and she debuffed enemies by making them take 10% more damage every time she used a card. Her special move inflicted the enemy with 5 substitution count on hit, which could literally lock your opponent's strongest unit out and they were just dead. Her green card healed her for 15% of her health, boosted her blast damage by 15%, which was a pretty decent green card for a tank. But the real star of her kit was her cover change. When switching in, Kel destroyed 2 of your opponent's cards, buffed her own damage by 30% for 15 timer counts, and increased her substitution count by 2. So you had to be careful with that cover change. But it was pretty nasty. Like, you could completely shut down one of your enemy's combos by basically destroying their hand and still rerun later to tank another hit. Like, her defensive stats were high enough to absorb pretty big hits, but her ability to apply constant debuffs meant that she could dish out some serious punishment in extended fights, especially paired with Caulifla and Kaba. And talking about Kaba, he was the glue that held it all together. He was a green support type unit and arguably the most underrated of the three. His main ability healed him by 35% and cleansed allies of all of their debuffs, effectively giving the team a free reset mid-fight. His green card boosted the whole team's inflicted damage by 25% for 30 timer counts, and his unique ability gave a 40% strike damage boost to both Vegeta and Universe 6 allies whenever he switched out, which made him the perfect partner for other Universe 6 units and for Vegeta units. But I guess what made Kaba especially valuable was his Z ability. Instead of boosting attack stats like most characters, his Z ability gave green units max health. This gave him so much value as a bench unit on many teams, since Z abilities given HP were pretty scarce at the time. The banner also brought back a few strong returning units, like Super Vegeta and Perfect Cell, both of which were surprisingly still pretty decent, and there was even a new red Extreme Caulifla added to the pool, who had a decent Z ability for the red color. Honestly, for most players, this banner was literally just the first real step towards the inevitable arrival of Kefla, which everyone was very eager to see in Legends, and an obvious skip with the anticipated release of Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta. The month of February started with a brand new celebration for the Lunar New Year. It basically doubled the EXP in the story mode, doubled the EXP players could get from training items, cut the time required to train a character in half, because yes, if you're new to Legends, back then, training items were like adventures, where you had to wait for the training to finish to get the EXP, which in my opinion was like a horrible system. Glad they changed it. And the Zenny players could obtain from the story mode was multiplied by 5, so it was essentially the perfect time to grind your entire box, since every fight gave you twice the EXP and your training sessions finished twice as fast. Alongside that, a new login bonus campaign also began, running for 14 days, and giving a bunch of rewards like train items, energy tickets, skip tickets, and of course chrono crystals. Only about 150 chrono crystals, which a lot of players found a little bit stingy for the time, but still, with like all the skip tickets and very good train items they gave, honestly there was nothing to complain about. The next day, and we got a brand new Legends Road event, this time featuring Future Kid Trunks, a brand new free-to-play Spark in Trunks who could transform into a Super Saiyan mid-battle using his main ability. I remember taking a small break after the new year as my God Key team just couldn't compete with the Holy Trinity, and also that I didn't pull anything from the Future Saga banner, but of course, as soon as I saw this guy, I came straight back. But yeah, he was a blue melee type unit. His blue cards debuffed the enemies, making them take more strike damage for 15 timer counts. His green card then gave him 20% strike damage for 20 timer counts, which was actually pretty decent for a melee type unit, but nothing crazy. His post transformation main ability gave him a special move Arts card and buffed its damage by 30% for 15 timer counts, which was also nothing crazy, but alright I guess. And as for his unique abilities, the first one was a last man standing ability, giving him 15% damage inflicted per defeated battle member, and an additional 30% to his ki recovery when an allied Gohan is defeated. And his second unique ability gave him 30% strike damage if you had a Gohan on your team. So yeah, this guy was clearly meant to be run alongside Gohan, and his Z ability wasn't even bad. Like, it gave 24% strike attack to future or Legends Road tag units. So this guy was genuinely not a bad bench unit for a Future Saga tag, and could even replace the summonable Blue Future Trunks for those who didn't have him. So yeah, even though Trunks wasn't like a top tier unit, for a free character, he was actually pretty decent. Around the same time, Legends also dropped a brand new Legends Blue banner, featuring old characters like Kaioken Goku or Android 18, and as you can guess, this was just a hard skip. Unless you really wanted Blue Kaioken Goku, but even then, he probably wasn't worth it. Like, he was definitely still a top 10 unit in the game, but the other featured units just weren't all that. We also had a new PvP season, where players could farm the Extreme Pan's Z power, and as usual, that same Extreme Pan also got her own Scout Battle event that same day. That PvP season also introduced a new equipment, usable only by female warrior tag units. It gave up to 50% strike defense, critical rate, and either blast attack or strike attack, depending on the role. That equip was honestly pretty decent, and came at the perfect time, as a week later, on Valentine's Day, they dropped a Rising Girls banner, featuring 4 new units. Bulma was a blue support type unit that completely redefined what support characters could do at the time. Her main ability drew an ultimate arts card, healed the entire team by 10%, and gave an extra 10% heal to female warriors specifically, which was a pretty insane main ability to have for the time. Like a free ultimate, plus healing your whole team was nothing to laugh at. As for her ultimate, it cancelled the enemy's buffs, which was actually pretty good, but what really made her broken for the time was her green card. When activated, she'd instantly swap with another character on your team randomly, while giving 15% more damage to the whole team for 20 timer counts, and literally generated an extra Dragon Ball. Like, that combination was just ridiculous, especially in a meta where rush timing often decided matches. This made Bulma just so cracked, like you have no idea. Like it was just crazy. Then one of her unique abilities gave allied female warriors a 15% damage boost for 10 timer counts when she was switched out, and that included her green card. Like paired with the -2 sub count from her other unique ability and her green card, yeah, you could literally switch into Bulma, use her green card, and then whatever unit she would switch into had an insane 65% damage boost. Like brother, like Bulma was just cracked. Bulma was literally just cracked. Chi-Chi was a green blue type fighter. Her kit was designed around countering Sun family units, who were still a big part of PvP with all of the different Gokus the game had at the time. Her main ability drew an ultimate arts card and nullified unfavorable element factors for 15 timer counts, letting her safely go toe-to-toe with her counters. Her ultimate dealt major slice damage and had a 20% chance to fate on hit. Her special move inflicted a debuff that made the enemy take 10% more damage for 15 timer counts, combined with her green card, which added 15% strike damage and even forced the enemies to switch out on hit. Yeah, she was pretty scary, especially against Sun family characters, as that same green card also increased their sub count by 5, effectively trapping their teammates off the field for so much time. Like, this was a pretty cracked effect to have on a green card. But the real heart of her kit was her unique abilities. One gave her an immense 80% damage inflicted against Sun family units. Like if your opponent brought any versions of Goku, Gohan or Goten, Chi-Chi instantly became a monster. Her other unique ability restored 50k on entry and gave her 30% Q recovery and 20% blast damage if you had another female warrior character on your team. Her Z ability then gave 20% strike defense to female warriors, which fit perfectly in a meta where most top tier units, including Broly, were strike based units. Chi-Chi was overall pretty decent, an absolute beast against Sun family tag units, especially paired with Bulma's insane support capabilities. Videl was a yellow melee type fighter. Her main ability was usable after just 10 timer counts, healed her by 30%, boosted her strike damage by 35% for 20 timer counts, and reduced her strike arts cost by 5. Those cheap strike cards let her extend combos like crazy, and the healing worked pretty well with the rest of her kit, as you could proc all of her low HP boosts, heal back to full HP, and then just destroy the enemy. Her green card also gave her 20% strike damage for 20 timer counts, with an additional 15% damage if she was below 50% HP, while her special move gave her even more strike damage on use, plus another 15% if she was below 50% HP. As for her unique abilities, her first unique ability gave her 30% strike damage on entry if you had another female warrior character who was alive on your team, and another 20% if her health was below 50% HP. And her second unique gave her a terrifying 50% strike damage when 2 allies were defeated, turning her into one of the scariest last man standing units of her time. On top of that, she dealt an extra 20% damage when facing Gohan, which was something you could see pretty often, as future Gohan was still one of the best units in the game. Her Z ability boosted female warriors' strike defense, adding just enough survivability to let her get into the dangerous half health range safely, which synergized pretty well with all of the HP restrictions she had on her kit. Like overall, Videl was just insane offensively, especially below 50% HP. Like when you factor in all of her buffs, she could just look completely insane. Extreme Mai was a support type unit. Her main ability drew a special arts card, restored 50 ki, and gave 20% damage to all allies for 15 timer counts. Her special move shortened her allies' sub count by 5, while her green card did the same on activation, inflicted flash, and applied a 20% damage receipt debuff to the enemy. Between that and her unique abilities, both of which granted 20% damage to all allies when she switched in or out, Mai was pretty crazy. She helped your other 2 attackers get on the field faster and hit harder once they did. With Kel and Caulifla, the female warrior tag was arguably already a Metal Relevant tag, but with those new 4 units, yeah, that tag was officially up there, as one of the best teams in the game. As for the banner itself, it also featured yellow Android 18 and blue Pan, and with how good those new girls were, it was probably worth summoning on, at least if you didn't care for the upcoming Dragon Ball Super Broly units. Like, the Peppy Gold team was probably the best team we had seen since the Holy Trinity. I remember people being pretty mad at those new units, like, power creep was genuinely getting out of control, and the fact that the team that kind of dethroned the Holy Trinity was a Peppy Gold team was honestly just not serious at all. Like, like, are you for real? The new best team in the game was a team that consisted of Bulma, Chi-Chi, and Videl. Like, bro, this was just ridiculous. But yeah, we also got a new full-on Valentine's themed event, centered entirely around the female warrior tag. The event itself was essentially a Legends Road style grind. You had to farm chocolate items, dropped by enemies, including a chocolate Cyberman. These chocolates acted as the event's currency. You could trade them in the shop for items like skip tickets, training items, rising souls, and new Valentine's themed equipments. And if you used certain characters, you had bonus drop and damage. As for the new Valentine's themed equipments, the most notable one increased blast attack for every female warrior in your battle group, up to 25% total if you run a full trio. Others boosted strike and blast defenses, or special and ultimate move damage. Like, honestly, these new equips were not only good, but literally a must if you wanted to get the most out of that new banner. We also had a brand new Cell story event completely unrelated to the Valentine celebration. The event came with 3 new equipments, 2 of which were actually pretty decent. The first one boosted special move damage, strike defense, and added up to 7% blast damage per region tag battle member on your team. So that last effect could give you in total 21% blast damage, which was a pretty big deal for the region tag. The second equip was exclusive to extreme red units, and was actually cracked for the time. It could roll up to 25% strike and blast attack and defense, and give 12% HP. HP which was definitely the strongest defensive stat at the time. It was so good that I even remember some players running Extreme Fascia instead of Gogeta alongside Bardock and Broly on the Holy Trinity team. Like, with those crazy extreme equipments, she was arguably better than Gogeta. Like, the damage you lost from Bardock's supports not being applied to her was compensated by her insane support type buffs. When swapped out, she gave Bardock a 50% strike damage buff, and if she died, the entire team got 30% more damage. Combine that with her green cards, 20% team buff, and Bardock could literally one combo a fully transformed purple Broly. Like, that's just how crazy his damage got with her. We then got more V-Jump leaks, this time teasing the upcoming Ultra Space Time Summon banner, featuring a new Super Saiyan 3 Goku from the Boo Saga and a Super Saiyan 2 Rage Vegeta from the Battle of Gods movie. Super Saiyan 3 Goku was shown to be a hyper-aggressive unit designed to dominate the early game. Basically, a new version of the Yellow Heart Virus Goku. Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta, on the other hand, was the opposite. His kit would be designed for him to be like a last man standing unit, meaning he was meant to dominate the late game. Both of these units were teased as part of a new wave of movie and Boo Saga characters releasing in early March, and players were already speculating which third unit would join them on the banner, with most guesses pointing toward a new Super Boo. After some not so hype releases, Legends finally dropped one of the most anticipated banners of the time, the second Dragon Ball Super Broly movie banner, featuring the long-awaited Super Saiyan God Vegeta. Super Saiyan God Vegeta was a red melee type unit, and for the time he was pretty solid. His main ability gave him 40% strike damage for 25 timer counts, reduced the cost of his strike cards by 5, and could be activated after just 5 timer counts. So right from the start of battle, you could transform him into a combo monster. He had almost no setup time. You jumped in, popped his main, and he was already hitting like a truck. His blue cards then gave him another 15% strike damage. His green card reduced the next damage he took by 10% until the enemy combo ended, and added another 15% strike damage for 20 timer counts. While 10% might not sound like much, it applied until the entire combo was finished, so it was actually pretty decent. And yeah, more strike damage was obviously very good. One of his unique abilities gave him a 50% strike damage boost for 20 timer counts every time he entered the battlefield, as long as his health was higher than his opponents. This encouraged players to play aggressively from the start, maintain that health advantage, and constantly rotate him in and and out to keep that buff active. His second unique gave him an extremely solid cover change. When switching into a combo, he reduced the damage he received by 40% until the combo ended, applied strike and blast armor, and even knocked back the enemy if they were close range. But it obviously came at the cost of increasing his sub count by 5, which honestly didn't really synergize too well with his first unique ability, as you wanted to like really switch him out a lot to keep his like first buff active. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that whole cover change ability even had like a special animation, at least against strike attacks, which was pretty cool. His Z ability gave 22% strike defense to God Key units, which was definitely very good, as the God Key tag lacked Z abilities. So yeah, God Vegeta was a great balance between offense and defense, and he fit perfectly alongside Red's percent God Goku. Together they turned the God Key tag into an actual top tier team. As for the other featured units on the banner, Super Saiyan God Goku was still a very good unit, and now better than ever thanks to God Vegeta. Purple Broly, as surprising as it might sound, was still the best unit in the game. Like, the Holy Trinity as a whole was starting to fade away, but Broly himself was still insanely cracked. Blue Broly and Yellow Paikuhan were just filler units, and definitely not good anymore. Overall though, this was one of those banners that was worth summoning on, especially if you had skipped the first Broly banner. Between the new Vegeta, Super Saiyan God Goku, and Full Power Broly, this banner gave you access to multiple very good units and meta-viable teams. Alongside the Super Saiyan God Vegeta banner, Legends also dropped a login bonus campaign, which ran for about 11 days. It gave a nice mix of train items, skip tickets, energy, and 150 chrono crystals. Legends then officially rolled out the full details for the next character balance changes, the third major wave of stat and toolkit upgrades for older characters that had completely fallen out of the PvP meta. This time the picked characters were based on data from the Super Space-Time Duel number 18, focusing on the least used Sparking and Extreme units at battle rank 50 or above. Turles was the first one on the list, and honestly, his buffs turned him into an actual decent unit. His green card got a full rework, the cost was reduced from 30 to 20, and instead of just giving random effects, it now guaranteed a 20% general damage buff for 20 timer counts, while randomly adding one of 4 extra effects, either drain a green card, 20% more blast damage, 20% ki recovery, or 50% vanish gauge recovery speed. That combination gave him far better consistency and made him less RNG reliant. His main ability also became way more practical. It used to only reduce blast arts cost for 10 counts after 15 timer counts, but after the buff, it could be used after just 5 timer counts and lasted for 20 timer counts, and even drew a green card instantly. That one change alone made him much more aggressive early in the match. His first unique ability saw the biggest jump, from a measly 10% blast damage against Sun Family type units to a massive 40%. This meant he finally had a purpose again, being a solid anti-Goku or anti-Gohan option for purple teams. On top of that, his damage reduction from his other unique ability now lasted for 35 timer counts instead of 25. So yeah, Turles was actually one of the best units in the game now, especially since he paired pretty well with Purple Broly. Next was Red Sparking Hercule. His green card now destroyed both players' hands while restoring his ki by 30 and reducing the enemy's ki by 30, which was great for stalling. His main ability had its activation time reduced from 20 to 10 timer counts and raised all enemies' card cost to 99 for 15 timer counts. If timed correctly, that could completely shut down an opponent's combo window, but the real improvement came from his unique abilities. It now activated when his HP dropped below 40%, up from 30%, and it buffed allies' damage by 30% and ki recovery by 40% for the rest of the match, combined with his new enhanced endurance, which restored 30% of his health, while also reducing the damage he will receive by 80% for 5 timer counts. Yeah, Hercule suddenly became one of the tankiest and most N-win units in the game. Then there was Green Piccolo, the OG tank. His special beam cannon was reworked to not only inflict heavy bleed damage, but also reduce the enemy's cover sustained damage cut effects by 50%, and added a 50% blast damage debuff to the enemies he hit with it. His green card got a cost reduction from 25 to 20 and gained a new conditional effect. After 40 counts, it buffed his next blue card by 50%. His anti-Saiyan unique ability now boosted blast damage by 50% instead of 20%, making him an actual real threat against Saiyan heavy teams. And his Z ability was also buffed. now affecting both green and regen tag units, instead of just green units. This gave the regen team a much stronger defensive bench option, or honestly just a decent option overall. Like, Piccolo went from being borderline unplayable to a legit solid wall and support unit for the regen tag, especially when paired with Zamasu or Janemba. Like, he was arguably one of the best units in the game now. Blue Pen also got a major glow up. Her main ability, now draw a green card, reduced enemy key recovery and card draw speed, and could be activated after only 10 timer counts instead of 20. Her green card got a stronger 30% strike damage buff and a lower cost of 20 instead of 25. Her unique abilities were reworked to give her 40% key recovery for 35 timer counts and a 30% damage buff to her whole team for 25 timer counts, which made her surprisingly useful early game. Her Z ability was also expanded to buff both the female warrior and Sun family tag units, which was a small but nice bonus. So while she wasn't top tier, she became a solid support type pick for the hybrid Saiyan or female warrior teams. Like, generally the female warrior team was literally like the best team in the game now. Blue Krillin also received a full set of upgrades. His solar flare was the biggest change. It now had a cost of 15 instead of 35, which was already pretty huge in itself. But the biggest thing here is that its range was extended from mid to long, and it inflicted flash on hit, while also applying a 30% blast damage debuff to all enemies. That made it a lot more usable, both offensively and defensively. His main ability was improved to restore 10% of his own HP, 60 key, and 20% to his whole team, while also clearing them of all of their debuffs. It also reduced the enemy key recovery by 100% for 5 timer counts, combined with his unique assist ability, which now gave a 20% damage buff to his team for 20 timer counts on Switch. Krillin finally became an actual decent support type unit. His Z ability and stats were also buffed, which was pretty decent for mono blue teams. And while obviously the Spark units were the main focus here, a few extreme units also got some stat bumps, including Fuse with Nell Piccolo, Red Krillin, Extreme Vegeta, Second Form Cell, and Android 16, all of whom got slightly improved Z abilities and minor stat scalings. But yeah, they weren't really anything crazy. Like, Android 16 probably got the best buffs out of all of them. Like, he was generally not a bad support type unit for the Android tag now. So yeah, the balance change third update was actually pretty crazy. Piccolo and Turles were genuinely top tier units now, and Pan was also pretty damn good. Legends also released a new banner alongside it called Legends Rise Up, featuring all 5 of the recently buffed units from the recent balance changes update. Those were old units that most players already had, so this banner was definitely a hard skip. And even if you didn't have them, like with how crazy the power creep was getting, yeah, you were better off waiting for Dragon Ball Super Gogeta. We also had a new PvP season where you could farm Z power for the Extreme Kaba, who, like every Extreme class unit that's featured on a Super Space Time Duel, got his own Scout Battle event. And obviously a new PvP season also meant a new gold equip. This time it was an equip for the sagas from the movie's characters. It was actually pretty decent. It gave them up to 15% blast attack, 30% blast defense, and an extra 5% strike defense for movie tag battle members, so up to 15% strike defense. So yeah, this equip was actually pretty insane for Broly, as he was already pretty tanky due to his high stats transformed. So having even more blast defense and strike defense, yeah, it made an already insane unit even crazier. At the very end of February, Legends dropped the 10th Ultra Spacetime banner, featuring 3 brand new Sparking units: Ultimate Gohan, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and Super Saiyan 2 Rage Vegeta, alongside 2 new extreme characters. And just like the recent banners, this one also had the special 999 Z-Power format, which made it one of the better value banners of the time, at least for players who wanted to instantly push their units to 4 stars. Ultimate Gohan. He was a green meta type fighter and easily one of the most mechanically unique character the game had seen up to that point. His entire kit revolved around his green card, which made him stronger each time he used it. The first activation boosted his strike damage by 40%, the second boosted his key recovery by 30%, the third gave him 40% blast damage and 30% special move damage, and from the fourth use and onward, it restored 50 key and cleansed him of all of his debuffs. Like, bro, this was just an insane green card in the long run. Like, the longer you kept that guy alive, the scarier he became. But obviously you also had to be lucky with the green cards. If the stars align and you manage to actually activate all of his buffs, yeah, that guy could become like ridiculous. Then his main ability drew his ultimate arts card, restored 1 charge of his cover rescue, and could be used after just 25 timer counts. His ultimate even reduced the enemy's ki by 50 on hit, which was pretty nasty. But coming back to his cover rescue, Gohan had the same mechanic as like the green instant transformation Goku. The first time he swapped in to cover an ally, he literally just saved him, took 0 damage from that combo, buffed his own strike damage by 20%, and increased his sub count by 5 afterwards. And yeah, you already know how broken that was. Like, you could literally completely nullify an enemy's Rising Rush, or like a massive like blue card or combo or like anything, bro. You could literally save your ally from anything, like twice per battle, which was just crazy, bro, crazy. As for his unique abilities, his first unique ability gave him a green card and 20% damage for 10 timer counts every time he successfully vanished an attack, which, as you would guess, synergized pretty well with his green card buffs. Like you could vanish, get a green card, pop it, vanish again, rinse and repeat. It was like one of the craziest combos in the game at the time. But yeah, since the guy was guaranteed 2 green cards, you could at the very least activate his 2 first buffs, the strike damage and ki recovery, which was pretty good. But as strong as he was, the fact that he was green ended up being his demise. Purple units dominated the meta at the time. Broly was still the best unit in the game, and almost every meta team had like a purple unit on it, so you can guess that Gohan had a very hard time in that meta. Next up was Super Sentry Goku, a red range type unit. From the start of battle, he got 40% damage and 30% recovery for 45 timer counts, and once that time ran out, his recovery was cut in half. His main ability could be used after just 5 timer counts and gave him additional damage every time he landed a strike or blast card, combined with his green card that restored 30 ki and buffed his blue card's damage for 20 timer counts. He was just an early game monster. The catch was that you had to be insanely aggressive with him. If you played too slow or got caught early, he was practically dead weight after 45 timer counts. Like, he had incredible damage potential early game, but his predictable pacing and I guess poor defenses made him easy to counter. Then we had Super Saiyan 2 Rage Vegeta, a purple support type unit. He was designed as a true last man standing unit. His main ability healed him by 20%, drew a blue card, and gave 80% damage to his next blue card. His green card buffed his teammates' blast damage, and those buffs got stronger the more allies had been defeated. His first unique ability was his real selling point. When 2 allies were defeated, Vegeta healed 50% of his HP, restored 60 ki, drew a green card, and got 70% strike damage, while also cutting damage he received by half. On top of that, his other unique ability gave 20% damage to Saiyan and Hybrid Saiyan allies whenever he swapped out, which made him a fantastic support pick. Like, he wasn't as flashy as Gohan or Goku, but he had one of the best comebacks mechanics in the game. He was the type of unit you could slap into like any Saiyan team, honestly, and he could perform pretty well there. And the way he synergized with Super Sentry Goku made him a pretty decent duo at the time. Like, Goku dominated the early game and Vegeta took over the late game. As for the 2 new extreme units, Pure Evil Buu was a blue range type unit who was designed to counter Regen Tag. His main ability gave him a 50% damage buff and a free blue card, while his unique abilities reduced the enemy's healing and card draw speed. Like, he wasn't anything meta defining, but he was a solid option against regen teams. Obviously, Extreme Vegeta was a blue defense type unit and was designed to counter the entering tag, restoring health and gaining ki with his main ability and raising the enemy's card costs. Like, honestly, he was alright, but nothing crazy. Now, this update also came with a huge set of quality of life improvements that really changed the game. The biggest one was the new equipment archive, which finally let players view every piece of equipment in the game, see where you could obtain them, and track which ones you already owned. Past PvP exclusive equips were also added to the rare medal shop, which was a massive deal for like players who had missed them at the time. They also added a new PvP praise system, where you could send messages to your opponents after matches, alongside new penalties for frequent disconnects. A clear step toward fixing the cheater problem that plagued the early PvP scene. And on top of that, Legends added new customization features, like the option to display transformed versions of characters on the home screen, an improved element display for adventure missions, and a new Let's Fight daily event that gave 1 million XP to one of your characters per day, which was literally the best event in the game to farm friendship. and it still is to this day outside of like big celebrations. The month of March started with the very first Legends Battle Royale, an entirely new PvP event format. The event ran from March 6 to March 13, 2019, and it was the first time Bandai tried a structured tournament system inside the game. Unlike regular ranked PvP, the Battle Royale had fixed time slots every day, where players could fight during specific 2-hour windows to earn something called Battle Royale Power. Whoever accumulated the most by the end of the event and met the ranking conditions would receive an invitation to the first ever showdown in Las Vegas tournament that May, which was pretty huge because that meant that Legends had officially entered the world of real competitive events, with an in-game qualifier that could actually lead you to an official in-person tournament. But what made that mode stand out even more was its battle format. Every character was automatically set to level 2000, 7 stars, and fully soul boosted, regardless of your box. So that meant that even free-to-play players could compete evenly against Wells, since there was no stat or star advantage. It was purely skill based. Well, you still needed to pull the units, but unlike regular PvP, all you needed was one copy. You also needed entry tickets to participate, which were given daily, and you could use up to 3 per day. The system was simple: win matches, steal your opponent's battle royale power, and climb the ladder. It was a pure test of skill, reaction time, and team building. But as amazing as it was, the first battle royale wasn't without problems. Matchmaking took a long time, especially during off hours, since players couldn't be paired with bots. Sometimes it could take 10, even 20 minutes to find a single match, and the worst part is that within hours of the event launching, some players discovered a disconnect exploit, a simple trick that could force your opponent's match to count as a loss even if they won. Something very similar to the disconnect bug Legends had a couple of months prior. And bro, it spread fast. Within a day, the whole battle royale was flooded with disconnect cheaters. Thankfully, Bandai responded quickly, announcing new real-time anti-cheat measures during the event itself. They started like monitoring all matches live, and anyone detected deliberately lagging, disconnecting, or exploiting the system immediately lost access for that day, and repeat offenders were fully banned from the event after 3 strikes. But even that fix was like an issue because the system wasn't perfect. Some players were banned from the event after accidental crashes or random disconnects, so some players actually got wrongfully banned from the event. Still, despite all of that, the concept behind the Battle Royale was incredibly well received. It gave everyone a glimpse of what a fair, skill-based Legends PvP system could look like. No equip or star advantage, just pure player versus player combat. This event also came with a really cool addition that was called the LBR mode, Limit Break Regulations, in friend battles, letting you fight your friends using the same level, 2000 fully soul boosted, 7-star stead up as the official Battle Royale. It was a great way to practice in a completely balanced environment, and a feature many players hoped would stay permanently. Around the same time, a few other minor updates dropped alongside the event. The Part 3 Book 4 of the story mode was added, continuing the game's storyline. The rare medal exchange shop was updated, refreshing some older items and raising equipment's limits. They brought back multiple events for players who missed them, giving them another chance to farm specific equips. And we also got another PvP season, bringing back the Sacred Water equip. Right as the first Legends Battle Royale was wrapping up, Bandai started teasing something new on social media, and this one had the entire community on edge. They launched a global Twitter campaign where players had to complete both in-game and social media objectives, things like retweets, likes, and in-game story clears, to earn Master's Packs 2 summon tickets. Each completed mission gave 1 ticket, and if all 9 goals were met, everyone would get 3 sparking 30% tickets. The rewards were good, yes, but the real reason why this piqued the whole community's interest was because of the image hidden behind the missions. Each time a goal was cleared, part of a hidden picture was revealed underneath. At first, it just looked like a random golden glow, but as more sections unlocked, we got the full picture, and it was Super Saiyan 2 Gohan's father-son Kamehameha. The sheer amount of hype this single image generated was just something else, because we already had Super Senzu Gohan in game. Sure, not the father-son Kamehameha Gohan, but Super Senzu Gohan. So why would they make a whole teaser just to tease a character we already had in game? Well, that's only if he was going to release as some sort of new rarity or with a new mechanic or something like that. And then, a few days later, the reveal finally dropped. A brand new Step Up Summon banner featuring the first ever legendary finish unit, Super Senzu Gohan. He was locked behind special guaranteed sparking tickets, just like Beerus, which you could only earn by completing full step up rotations. Every true rotation gave 2 guaranteed tickets, and Gohan had about a 20% pull rate on that separate ticket banner. And even though the format was terrible, something that was made very clear by the player base with Beerus' release, everyone pretty much agreed that Super Senzu Gohan was one of the hypest releases in the game's history so far. The first ever legendary finish animation was just something else at the time. It was easily one of the most jaw-dropping animations Legends had ever produced. Like bro, in Dokkan we had a PNG going up and down, and Legends had a full-on 3D animated cinematic experience, with probably better rates than Int LR Super Senzu Gohan's initial release. And 2 days later, the moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. The first ever legendary finish unit was here. The Legends Step Up Volume 2 banner dropped with 3 new characters: Perfect Cell, Lord Slug, and the star of the show, LF Super Senzu Gohan. LF Super Senzu Gohan was a red range type unit built to be a pure last man standing monster. The moment one of your allies went down, Gohan started stacking buffs like crazy. His main ability drew his iconic Father-Son Kamehameha, restored 30% of his HP, gave him Ki, and even nullified unfavorable color disadvantage. And if a Goku on your team died, he gained 100% ultimate damage, turning him into one of the deadliest units in this game's history. His ultimate arts card literally became a second Rising Rush, and his blue cards were literal nukes, doing just so much damage. It was crazy. His other unique ability also reduced the cost of his blast cards, while giving him so many buffs and more defense against characters from the regen type. So yeah, Gohan was just insane. But was he number 1? Honestly, from what I remember, it was still debatable, as he needed more setup than, let's say, Broly or the New Cell, but he was definitely the strongest individual damage dealer in the game, for sure. Perfect Cell was a yellow melee type unit with one of the most broken defensive and utility kits the game had ever seen. His main ability drew his Solar Kamehameha and completely ignored enemy cover change damage cut for 30 timer counts, which was insane at the time. On top of that, he sealed one of your opponent's card slots every time he entered the battlefield, which could easily shut down combos or even block a Rising Rush if you got lucky. He also had a cover rescue mechanic, the same one as Ultimate Gohan or the Green Percent Goku, meaning he could cancel pretty much everything in the game. His Solar Kamehameha had the chance to feint, and his green card launched a Ki Blast that had priority over almost every action in the game, all while increasing his strike damage and making your enemy's strike cards cost an additional 20 Ki. Brother, this was just ridiculous. 20 more Ki is just insane. So if you weren't careful, Cell could lock you out completely. They could literally just couldn't do anything. This guy was just insane, and probably the best unit in the game at the time, especially because of how ridiculous the regen team was. Lord Slug. When this guy first dropped, he didn't get much attention, but that changed fast once player realized how oppressive he could be. He was a blue melee type unit. His green card had a 30% chance of stealing one of your opponent's Dragon Balls and start a combo immediately afterward. It was basically a built-in Rising Rush delay. I still remember players pairing him with Captain Ginyu or Dodoria to constantly farm green cards and steal Dragon Balls over and over. Like, this was just crazy, and also surprisingly not that bad. Then his blue card had a 40% chance to paralyze, turning any hit into a potential death sentence. His first unique ability then scaled his strike damage based on his HP, gaining up to 50% when low, which combined with his second unique ability, giving him even more strike damage. Yeah, this guy was a late game monster. Purple Extreme Trunks was a melee type unit, and while most players overlooked him, he was surprisingly solid. His main ability boosted his card draw speed while lowering the enemy's card draw speed, and and destroyed everyone's hand, both his and his opponents, which actually gave him a strong reset potential. Like imagine destroying both players' hands and then lowering the card draw speed of the opponent while raising yours. Like this was a pretty strong combo. He also had bonus strike damage against the regen tag, which made him a decent quote-unquote budget unit to counter Cell and Slug if you didn't have better options. Extreme Red Tien was a support type unit, who honestly was one of the better extreme supports of the time. His main ability buffed allies strike damage by 40% and reduced the enemy's card draw speed, while his green card stunned the opponent and destroyed all of their strike cards. He wasn't a damage dealer, but he had great utility, early game buffs, team support, and solid disruption. So yeah, this banner was, as you would guess, a must summon, even though Gogeta was on the way. Like the banner was just too stacked to skip. And alongside the new banner, dropped the 20 million download celebration, which included a Goku Everyday free summon campaign that handed out free tickets every day that you could then use to summon on a special Goku banner that only featured Goku units, including God Goku and Kaioken Goku, so it was cool if you were still missing them, and you sell event with the first ever unique equipment, who was for, guess who? Green Beerus? Like, brother. This guy was so trash that they gave him a unique equip not even 3 months after his initial release. But yeah, he was now finally somewhat viable on the God team. Right after the crazy hype of LF Gohan, we got some V-Jump leaks. It was confirmed that 3 new characters were on the way: GT Super Saiyan Goku, GT Super Saiyan Vegeta, and Hyper Metal Rildo. Obviously not the hypest thing in the world, but the scans confirmed that all 3 units were part of an upcoming Ultra Space Time banner. But yeah, the biggest reveal here wasn't even the characters. It was the first ever mention of the Ultra Space Time Rush. The scan teased it as a very difficult new event, where each stage would have unique rules, including one where you could only use each character once. That single sentence got the entire community speculating. People were saying it would finally be the PvE endgame mode Legends needed, a challenge for players with deep boxes full of fully trained and soul boosted characters. At the time, nobody knew exactly when it would release, but it was already shaping up to be one of the most anticipated updates of the year. Little did we know, bro. Little did we know. Right after the V-Jump leaks, Legends got another content update. First off, a brand new PvP season, and this one introduced a new Hybrid Saiyan exclusive equip that instantly became a must-have for LF Super Saiyan Gohan. The equip boosted strike defense, blast attack, and strike attack, giving him even more damage. And since Gohan was heavily blast based, having that extra strike damage actually helped him quite a lot. Alongside that, Bandai made small daily mission adjustments, forcing players back into PvP. You now had to win at least 1 PvP match per day and upgrade an equip to complete your daily missions, which obviously forced players to interact more with the game's core systems. And honestly, this kind of sucks for players like me who played Legends for the PvE. Like, I wasn't touching PvP even at the time, so. We then had the second half of the Cell event, introducing 2 new equips. One was for extreme purple characters, and like every extreme equip, it was stacked: 25% to both defenses, 25% to both attacks, and 12% HP. This was obviously just completely cracked. Easily the best equip in the game for purple extreme units. The second one was for blue regeneration characters and was a decent defensive equip, but not nearly as good as the previous one, obviously. They then, 2 days later, showed the official top 20 character rankings from the previous PvP season, and 6 of the top 10 units were either regen tag units or worked perfectly against them, so it was clear that the regen team had completely taken over PvP. At the top of the list we had Zamasu, Lord Slug, and Perfect Cell, all of whom had dropped within just the last few weeks. And I remember that players were starting to complain that the game was starting to feel pretty bad. Yeah, the meta wasn't in a good spot. Like, it didn't matter what team you built. You were either playing regen or trying to counter the regen with regen. That's literally how the meta was at the time. Think about it, bro. The anti-regen team was literally another regen team. Which just tells you everything you need to know about the state of the meta. Like, bro, LF Super Saiyan Gohan was the 14th most played character in PvP. Like, sure, he was obviously harder to pull than like a regular Sparkin, but still, you would expect the first LF character to at least be in the top 5 or bare minimum 10. Like, this was just insane. Legends then started teasing the next big update on Twitter, giving us a new hint every day and the teaser of the next big unit the day before the update. Yeah, Dragon Ball Super Gogeta was on the way. The month ended with one of Legend's biggest updates to date, and the final collab banner of the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, which had its own login bonus campaign, and on the last day, it gave a cool Dragon Ball Super Broly costume to Charlotte. But the main highlight was obviously the arrival of Dragon Ball Super Gogeta. Gogeta started off in his base form as a blue range type unit, and after just 10 timer counts, his main ability let him transform into Super Saiyan Gogeta, restoring 40 ki and completely shifting his stats. Even before transforming, he was already pretty good. His unique ability increased the damage of his blue cards the longer he stayed on the field, scaling up to an additional 50% damage, and bro, his blue cards had blast armor and hit like a truck. But transformed, he was just something else. Once transformed, Gogeta's entire kit was just like, it was crazy. His main ability drew another blue card, healed him for 20% HP, and gave him 30% damage for 15 timer counts. His new blue card not only hit harder, but also locked the enemy from switching for 3 timer counts, which was just insane because, like I said, those blue cards hit like a truck. So combine that with locking, and yeah, this was just, I don't know what they were thinking. His green cards also got upgraded. It reduced his next blue card's cost by 20 and boosted its power by another 30%, turning his blue cards into mini nukes, like literally. But the craziest part is that his transformed unique ability gave him 100% blast damage against the enemies using blast armor. So if you're fighting characters like Broly or Cooler and they tried to tank through Gogeta's blast attacks with their blast armor, they would just get deleted instantly. But exactly what we needed at the time. On top of that, he had 40% damage when entering the battlefield, could restore ki by dodging with Vanish, and got another 70% special move damage if he stayed in the battle for long enough. All of those buffs combined made him a terrifying offensive unit, and officially brought back the Holy Trinity into the meta, with the new Gogeta, Super Saiyan Bardock, and Purple Broly. Alongside Gogeta, we got a brand new Legends Road event, introducing a Sparking Gotenks. He was a green defensive type unit. His main ability destroyed your entire hand and drew 4 new cards while healing him for 25%, letting you instantly reload during combos. He also increased card draw speed every time he entered the battlefield, and his blue cards reduced the enemy's strike defense while dealing solid damage. Gotenks' green cards then boosted his strike damage by 25%, and his blue cards had 20 less cost thanks to his second unique ability for the first 45 timer counts, which made him pretty crazy in the early game. He even offered defensive value when switched out, reducing damage received by 40% for 20 timer counts. And his event also came with some new equipments. They weren't anything crazy, but the Legends Road equip was pretty interesting, as it gave blast attack per Legends Road battle member, meaning that it could give a very interesting amount of stats to a Legends Road character on a full Legends Road team. So this could be interesting in the future. Now, as for the big update, it introduced the Ultra Space Time Rush, which was literally just Legends version of the Dokkan battlefield. You could only use each unit once per run, which meant having a big box of multiple units finally mattered, instead of just having a few meta-relevant characters. Like, I remember some players at the time just rerolling every single time a new major character dropped. I think some players still do that to this day, which honestly I guess I can understand. Like, if you reroll every time a new character drops, you just can't get shafted, so it's genuinely a valid strategy. Like, the first Ultra Space Time Rush event was, as far as I remember, so ridiculously difficult that even veteran players couldn't beat it at first. At least I know I wasn't able to fully finish it, and I had been playing since day one, but maybe I just sucked. But yeah, the mode had no energy cost, so you could retry it as much as you wanted, but to earn the best rewards, you needed to complete every challenge on each stage. Things like landing a Rise and Rush KO, or using a specific tag or element color. As for the rewards, they were honestly pretty decent, like tons of CC, tickets, and a new currency called the Rush Medals, which could be exchanged for exclusive Awakening materials, and memories used for the newly introduced Equipment Awakening system. Because yes, you could now awaken equipments to push their stats beyond their original limits. For example, Beerus's unique equip could now go up to 40% strike attack instead of 30, making some previously decent equips absolutely broken. To awaken equipments, you needed memories that you could buy with the Rush Medals, along with high rarity fodder equipments and special fragments. It was a tedious grind, like something so bad that I can't even begin to describe with words. But the stat boosts were so significant that you unfortunately just had to do it if you wanted to compete in high rank PvP. On top of that, Bandai finally added a way to increase equipment slots, and though it came with a catch, they costed 3000 rare medals or Z medals per slot, which was just absolutely ridiculous at the time. Players immediately called it out for being way too expensive, but I guess it was still better than having no way to get more equipment slots. They also dropped a new Broly event with 2 new equipments, one for Fusion Warrior or Super Saiyans, boosting both defenses and blast attack while adding Ki recovery, and another for Blue Fusion Warriors, made specifically for the new Gogeta, buffing his strike defense, special move damage, and blast attack or defense. So some very decent equips. The month of April started with Legends' first April Fool event, a Nappa Day celebration. Every day you could get Nappa Day tickets that you could then use in a banner with just Cybermans and Nappa characters. They then dropped a Nappa version of the Let's Fight event, and they also gave a cool Nappa Scouter accessory for Charlotte. Like, honestly, not bad for an April Fool celebration, especially the first one in the game's history. 2 days later, and we got a new Ultra Space Time banner, introducing the first wave of GT characters into the game. So we were now one step closer to having Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta in Legends. As for the new units, GT Super Saiyan Goku was a green range type unit, and from the start of battle, Goku got 40% blast damage and reduced the cost of his blast cards by 15 for 60 timer counts, which was basically the entire duration of most PvP fights back then. So yeah, this was already looking pretty good. Then every time he drew a blast card, he got an extra 15% damage for 15 timer counts, buffs that stacked pretty fast and made him snowball ridiculously hard. His green card then converted all of his strike cards into blast cards, while also giving him even more blast buffs, which made him work pretty well with LF's percent to Gohan, who was still the hardest hidden range type unit in the game. His blue cards then boosted his blast damage for another 15 timer counts, and his main ability increased his card draw speed twice, once for 5 timer counts and again for 15 timer counts. So for his first 5 timer counts, that guy had his card draw speed increased twice, which was just insane. Like bro, honestly this guy was just absolutely crazy offensively, but that's pretty much all he had. Like he was the definition of a glass cannon. GT Super Saiyan Vegeta was a yellow blast type unit, and probably the best of the 3 when it came to overall utility. Every time he entered the battlefield, he instantly raised the enemy's strike card cost by 3, reduced their Ki recovery when they used strike cards, and started stacking blast buffs whenever he fired his own blast arts. He basically punished you for trying to play aggressively, while setting himself up to hit harder and harder with every card. His green card then applied a team-wide 25% debuff to all enemies' blast defense, combined that with his main ability, which inflicted 40% blast damage received and reduced the enemy's healing by 80%, and you could deplete opponents who relied on sustain like Zamasu fairly easily. Like the regen team was just ridiculous at the time, so this was just so good to have. He even delayed enemies' switch outs with a +5 substitution count debuff, which meant once you caught someone in a combo, they weren't escaping, which made him an absolute nightmare to face in PvP. Like literally every single unit who could lock your opponent in. By the time his kit stacked all of its effects, Vegeta could literally one combo almost any unit in the game if you had enough blast cards in your hand, or set GT Super Saiyan Goku to do it even better. And thanks to him holding 2 blast cards, he made that entire team flow seamlessly. Vegeta was honestly just amazing. Hyper Middle Rildo was the first real GT villain in Legends, and one of the tankiest melee units released at the time. He was a red strike type unit, and while he didn't have an established team to thrive in yet, his kit was still pretty stacked. When he entered the battlefield, he gained 50% strike damage for 20 timer counts, completely ignored cover damage reduction and nullified revive abilities, meaning opponents like Zamasu or characters with survival mechanics couldn't cheat death against him. That alone made him an early counter to regen heavy teams. His main ability then drew a strike card, restored 40 Ki and gave him 40% damage for 20 timer counts, while giving all of his strike cards a 70% chance to inflict heavy bleed, most often times than not, forcing them to switch out their character. His passive restored 10% HP every time he switched out, and made him immune to all abnormal conditions, like poison or paralysis, giving him great survivability in longer matches. He was also one of the first characters who could directly nullify sustained damage cut effects, which was huge in an era where units like Zamasu relied on it to survive. It was clear that this guy was made specifically to target the regen meta. His only real downside was that the GT type tag didn't have much synergy yet, so despite his power, he didn't have a solid home. Most players at the time ran him on monocolored teams. The banner also had an extreme Trunks, who was a green support type unit. He restored Ki when swapped out, boosted allies blast damage by 30%, and healed GT and Hybrid Saiyan allies by 15% when using his main ability. He even shortened their switch count by 5, which was surprisingly good for rotating through combos faster. And on defeat, he gave allies an extra 25% blast buff, making him a pretty decent support option for a new GT team. He was, without question, one of the strongest extreme type units in the game at the time, and a must-have for anyone looking to build the first version of the GT team. But even though all of the new units were pretty good, this was the first banner to have every old Sparkin on it. Like, up until that point, Ultra Space Time banners had the new Sparkin characters featured on it, and maybe one or two old Sparkin characters. But this banner had every single Sparkin unit up to Kel and Caulifla on it, which was just horrible if you wanted the new units. So the chances of you pulling one of the new characters were significantly worse. So most players prefer to skip that banner. And yeah, now that I think about it, this is probably why it felt like it was easier to pull new units back then, because it actually was. Alongside the new banner, they also added the book 7 of the part 3 of the story mode, continuing Charlotte's adventure. We also had a new PvP season with a brand new red equipment that boosted strike damage by up to 27.5%, which was just insane for red melee type units, even though it was obviously pretty niche. That new PvP season also introduced the first ever honorable title, a title only the first place player could get. A week later, Legends dropped another mid-sized update. It brought back the Legends Road Trunks event with some new equipments, a purple/future defensive equip that boosted blast and strike defense by up to 18% and base health by up to 10%. Like, it wasn't a top tier equip, but for pure tanks or glass cannons that needed survivability, it had some value. The classic Legends Road Universal equip made a return, a must-have equip for Legends Road units as it gave them max base health, and of course the Extreme and Blue equip, offering a massive 25% boost to both strike and blast attacks, plus a 12% health buff. Like, this was just a must farm, especially since some PvE events required full extreme only teams, making triple copies of that equip essential. On top of that, Bandai added a title reward for completing Legends Road missions, giving players something a little extra to grind. Oh, and the event was also bugged on release. Players noticed that some Z-Power options were missing in the exchange shop. You could only exchange bronze medals for Trunks' Z-Power, while the options for silver and gold medals simply didn't appear. Bandai quickly confirmed it was a visual bug and confirmed that some CC were on the way as compensation once that bug would be fixed. The Ultra Spacetime Rush got an expansion too, adding a 4th floor to the tower. With it came a brand new equipment awakening, this time for an equip that was exclusive to Green Saiyans, obviously designed for Green Vegeta. Another big part of the update was the new Cell event, introducing multiple new equipments, and a new title, the Ultimate Life Form, which leveled up as you cleared event missions, giving up to 50 blast defense at rank 10. As for the new equipments, the first one increased both strike and blast defense, plus boosted special move damage, so it was pretty decent, but this equip would have obviously been much better if it gave max health instead of special move damage, but I guess farming one copy couldn't hurt. The second one was more of a defensive equip with up to 25% blast defense and 15% strike defense. It was another solid but niche equip, mostly useful for range type Saiyans who needed survivability against purple heavy teams. The second half of April brought a pretty unexpected banner, introducing Ribrianne and Great Saiyaman 2 into the game. At first glance, the banner looked like your typical filler banners, but that couldn't be further from the truth, because Ribrianne ended up being one of the strongest characters in the entire game on release, turning the female warrior tag into arguably the best team in the game overnight. Blue Ribrianne was a defensive type unit, but you wouldn't have guessed it from her stats, because her strike attack was through the roof. She was tanky while also being able to hit insanely hard. Her main ability drew her ultimate arts card and inflicted no switching for 10 time recounts. That alone made her one of the scariest units in PvP, because once she caught you in a combo, you were pretty much dead. Her first unique ability reduced damage received by 30% every time she entered the battlefield, and debuffed all enemies, making them take more strike damage damage even the ones on the bench, making her a perfect partner for other strike-based female warriors like Pen or Caulifla. Her second unique ability gave her 30% strike damage every time an ally was defeated, and if that ally was a female warrior tag unit, she got an extra 25% on top of that, meaning that if she was the last one alive, she could get up to 110% strike damage just from that passive alone. Combine that with her tankiness and you had a last man standing monster. Then her blue card had a 50% chance to paralyze, and her ultimate had a 70% chance to paralyze while destroying 3 enemy cards on hit. Her green card debuffed the entire enemy team with 30% damage received for 25 timer counts, which made her allies hit even harder. She also held 2 strike cards, had massive base stats, and fit perfectly into any female warrior team. Rebran was easily a top 5 unit in the game when she first dropped, and easily the strongest female warrior at the time. Red Great Saiyaman 2 was a melee type unit. Her main ability, drew a green card, reduced her card cost and gave her 15% damage inflicted for 20 timer counts. Her first unique ability gave her 40% strike damage against Lineage of Evil tag units, and her second unique ability gave her 10% damage inflicted per battle member and 15% more for each purple ally on the team, making her perfect for mono purple setups, alongside Purple Broly and the Great Saiyaman 1 we'll talk about later. She also nullified attribute downgrades up to 3 times and gained bonus skill recovery. Her green card increased her card draw speed, letting her chain combos longer, and her blue card lowered the enemy's card draw speed on hit. Overall, she wasn't broken, but she was a solid addition to both the female warriors and purple heavy teams, and could absolutely destroy any Frieza unit she came across. Finally, Extreme Green Bulma. She was a support type unit who could easily compete with Spark and tier supports thanks to her green card. It restored 50 ki, reduced the enemy's ki by 50, and drew a blast card, while randomly granting one of 3 effects: 30% blast damage, 50% crit chance, or 70% chance to paralyze on blast hits. Just an insane green card. Her unique abilities then gave her 40% damage inflicted on entry, and another 40% blast damage if she had a female warrior ally. On top of that, her blast cards cost were reduced from 20 to 15, making her extremely efficient and combo friendly. Like that girl paired perfectly with Ribrianne as a support type option. For an extreme unit, she was insanely good. Legends also dropped a new Legends Road event, where you could farm a new free-to-play Purple Great Saiyaman 1. He was a hybrid Saiyan and Sun family unit, making him extremely versatile for a free-to-play character. His main ability, drew a blue card, restored 50 ki, boosted his damage by 30% for 20 timer counts, and gave his next blue card a 35% chance to faint, which was actually crazy for a free unit. His first unique ability then gave him 15% damage inflicted per battle member and another 15% per transforming warrior tag unit on the team, which was actually a terrible condition, as most transforming warriors characters didn't really work that well with him. His second unique ability then nullified attribute downgrades up to 3 times and increased his ki recovery by 30%, which was pretty decent. He held 2 blast cards and had a solid green card that reduced enemy's ki by 35 and drew a new card, which made him pretty great at keeping momentum. Overall, he was easily one of the best free-to-play units Legends had ever released up to that point. Not that they released that many free-to-play units, but yeah, he was right up there with the other Legends Road characters. The event also introduced 2 brand new equips, both actually really good for the time. The first one was exclusive to Legends Road characters and gave them up to 15% strike damage, 30% special move damage, and up to 8% blast defense per Legends Road ally. So on a full Legends Road setup, it could give up to 24% blast defense. The second one offered up to 15% strike defense, 18% blast defense, and 15% blast attack. A very balanced equipment that was good for characters from the Transforming Warrior tag. Legends also launched part 4 of the main story, adding book 1 and introduced new daily login bonuses that scaled depending on how far you had progressed in the story. They also started a new PvP season, which added a new Transforming Warrior exclusive equipment that boosted both strike and blast attack by up to 15%. Right after the Legends Road Great Saiyaman event, the April V-Jump Leagues dropped, and this time it gave us a first glance at the next Ultra Space Time banner. It was going to feature a new middle cooler and another legendary Super Saiyan Broly. I generally do not know what it was with Legends and Broly, but They just like that guy so much. The next day, Dragon Ball Legends SNS account had just reached 300,000 followers, so they were going to give 100 Chrono Crystals every day for 3 days, so a total of 300 Chrono Crystals to celebrate 300,000 SNS followers. A few days later, and it was time for a new Legends Rising banner, featuring Super Sentry Gotenks, Super Buu, and Extreme Lord Slug. Super Sentry Gotenks was a yellow mini-type unit. His ultimate arts card had a chance to faint that increased based on how many allies were still alive, meaning that the earlier you used it, the higher the chance to stun your opponent was. By the way, this ultimate arts card was bugged for almost a year. The 3 battle member chance wasn't 70%, but actually just guaranteed. Like you had a 100% chance to faint. But I guess since the chance was already so high, nobody suspected that it was actually bugged. Then his green card immobilized the enemy and gave him the perfect setup for combos, making him an absolute menace once he gained momentum. He also had a cover change mechanic that reduced incoming damage by 40% and gave him 50% strike damage after activation, but at the cost of increasing his sub count by 2. To top it off, his Z ability was the first to boost the Fusion Warriors tag unit's max base health. That alone made him a must-have on any fusion team. And bro, his ultimate's animation, the Ultra Boo Boo Volleyball, was easily one of the best looking ultimates in the entire game at the time. But Gotenks didn't arrive alone, his nemesis was right there with him. Super Boo was a purple range type unit, and everything in his kit revolved around crippling your enemy by reducing their ki and ki recovery. His blue cards reduced the enemy's ki recovery by 30%, while his ultimate arts card flat out reduced the enemy's ki by 70, and absolutely crazy debuff at the time. His green card then immobilized the opponent and made them take 25% more damage, setting up deadly combos for himself or his regen allies. His first unique ability restored 40% of his vanishing gauge every time the opponent switched characters, while also giving him 30% damage and 30% ki recovery. This meant that every time your opponent tried to escape him, Boo just got stronger. His second unique ability triggered after 25 time recounts and completely crippled the enemy's team. They took 30% more damage, got a 50% health regen debuff, and the cost of all of their arts card was increased by 5 for 45 timer counts. That combination was brutal and basically acted as a counter to the regen team, or any team that relied on sustainability, as it basically shut down their entire sustain. It was one of the most toxic kits in Legends at the time. Boo could turn any match into a slow, suffocating grind where the opponent could barely play, and all you had to do was survive 25 timer counts. The easiest thing to do with the regen team that was just filled with extremely tanky units. Then there was Extreme Lord Slug. He was a green defense type unit, clearly designed to be a mini support for the regen tag. His special move reduced the enemy's ki recovery by 40%, while his main ability restored 30 ki and boosted his ki recovery by 40%, and reduced all allies' special move cost by 10 for 30 timer counts. A small but pretty useful buff. His first unique ability randomly destroyed an enemy's card every time they entered the battlefield, while also increasing his own Vanish Ghost recovery speed by 50%, letting him dodge faster and interrupt enemies' combos. His second unique ability gave him 48% damage when he entered the battlefield, which vanished once hit, meaning as long as he didn't get hit, he had a 40% damage buff, which wasn't bad as you could switch him up into a combo and you were guaranteed to keep it at least until that combo ended. For an extreme unit, he was honestly pretty decent. We also had a new Yamcha event that day, where we could farm a new baseball Yamcha, who was actually surprisingly good. Purple Yamcha was a mini-type fighter who got stronger with every home run you landed. Like, this was generally such a cool concept and idea. Then his blue cards dealt major impact damage and destroyed all of the enemy's strike cards on hit, so a pretty crazy blue card. His main ability drew a green card and made all enemies' strike arts cards cost 99 for 10 timer counts, basically forcing the enemy to use a blast arts card so that you could counter them with his green cards, because yes, his green cards countered the enemy's tap attacks or blast attacks and increased his home run count by 1. And that's where his kit went from funny to actually ridiculous. His first unique ability made him scale with his home run count. The more home runs he scored, the stronger he got. At 1 home run, he gained faster card draw speed. At 2, he increased the enemy's strike cost. By 3 and 4, he got massive crit rate boosts and even more card draw speed. And if you somehow reached 7 home runs, he gained 100% rise and rush damage, instantly got 7 Dragon Balls, and even nullified endurance effects. Like, bro, if you played that guy AI right, he could genuinely look monstrous. Like, it was insane. His second unique ability then just gave him even more home runs, so he didn't even have to counter 7 times to unlock his full passive. Since the fewer allies he had left, the more home runs he gained per counter. If no one was defeated, he'd gain 1 per counter, with 1 ally down he'd gain 2, and with 2 allies down he'd gain 3. So by the end of a fight, he could go from a joke to a genuine clutch unit if the game dragged long enough. His Z ability then boosted Super Warrior's max health, which as far as I remember made him a must bench unit for that tag, which was pretty frustrating as I'm pretty sure it took some time for this guy to come back, but I might be mixing things up with like another unit. I'm not sure. Anyways, you could also unlock his uniform costume, his bat accessory, and even farm 2 exclusive equips from his event, and clearing all missions rewarded an exclusive title. But what really made this event special was the new battle type, the home run battles. These weren't normal fights. You could only use Yamcha, and all of your arts cards were replaced with green cards. The goal was to time your counters perfectly against the enemy's pitches to send them flying. It was essentially just like a reaction minigame, and it was honestly one of the most creative ideas Legends ever had. The event also came with a huge update that changed PvP forever. Disconnecting opponents would now be replaced with AI, and matches that ran out of time were decided by total damage dealt instead of just ending in a draw. That change alone fixed one of the biggest problems of PvP at the time. The month ended with a new Ultra Spacetime Summon banner that was teased earlier that month. Legendary Super Saiyan Broly was the clear headliner and was a green defense type unit, and like every Broly in Legends, he was just crazy. His green card was the highlight of his entire kit. It nullified almost every type of attack except certain ultimates. A Rising Rush knocked enemies back on hit and boosted the special move by 50%. It even reduced the next damage he took by 20%, making it both a defensive and offensive tool in one move. Like, this was essentially just a counter on crack. His main ability then gave him a blue card, reduced its cost by 15, and granted 40% strike damage for 25 timer counts, giving him serious damage potential, despite being labeled as a defensive unit. He also had a strong cover change ability, reducing the damage he received by 50% and even knocked the enemy back to long range if he countered a strike card. On top of that, it inflicted the enemy with an 80% key recovery debuff, completely killing off their combo potential. He wasn't quite as dominant as Purple Broly, but was still a very good unit, and definitely in the top 10 or even 5 at a time, just because of his green card and cover change. Like, his ability to stop combos was just insane, and the fact that this guy could tank a Rising Rush without having some sort of endurance was pretty impressive for the time. Red Metal Cooler was also a defense type unit. His main ability healed the entire team by 20%, cancelled all debuffs, and cleared abnormal conditions, something only a handful of characters could do at a time. When he entered the battlefield, he restored his own HP by 5%, gained 30% damage, and recovery for 15 timer counts, and destroyed one random enemy card. The buffs maybe looked small, but it definitely added up over the course of a fight. His second unique ability punished aggressive players by raising the cost of every strike or blast card the opponent used by 3. It made him a direct counter to rush heavy teams that relied on long combo chains. He also had one of the most valuable Z abilities of the time, 26% blast defense to Lineage of Evil tag units, as it essentially finally gave that tag a proper defensive Z ability. While Cooler didn't single-handedly make the Lineage of Evil top tier again, he gave them exactly what they needed: longevity, healing, and disruption, turning what was once a purely offensive tag into something far more flexible. He was also pretty decent in the regen team. Even though the tag was already stacked with units like Zamasu, Buu, or Cell, he was still an interesting new option. The last new addition was a Purple Extreme Videl, a solid defensive support type unit for the female warrior tag. Her special move increased the enemy's strike cost by 20 on hit, while her main ability boosted her own damage by 30%. Cut enemy key by 40, and lowered their card draw speed by 1 level. Her unique ability healed 50% of her HP every time she switched out, up to 3 times, cancelled her debuffs, and supported her allies with 10% damage every time the enemy used a card. She wasn't meta defining, but she helped female warriors stay relevant alongside Ribrianne and Great Saiyaman 2, who released earlier that month. This banner also brought back the usual guaranteed sparking ticket system, which meant players could earn free tickets from login bonuses and events to guarantee get a sparking full after 7 days, which was pretty good for this banner. To wrap up the month, we had a Happy Legends Week campaign, which I'm pretty sure was just Legends version of Dokkan's Golden Week. It started with a 21-day special login bonus campaign that gave out skip tickets, energy, training items, zenny, and a total of 500 Chrono Crystals, which was pretty solid for the time. Then they dropped missions that rotated weekly. Completing them rewarded Chrono Crystals and energy tickets. And also, during Happy Legends Week, EXP was doubled across all story modes, zenny was multiplied by 5, and training time was cut in half while still given 2 times EXP. Like, this was insane. Adventures also took half the normal time. This was one of the best opportunities to level up units and farm resources. And finally, for brand new players, Bandai released a Super Saiyan triple set in the shop, a one-time purchase that gave 300 Z power for Super Saiyan Goku, Vegeta, and Trunks, plus 30 silver bells. I honestly don't remember the cost of that pack, but it probably just wasn't worth it, as all of those cards were pretty much outdated by now. But yeah, this was honestly a pretty crazy first year for Legends. It's true that power creep got kind of crazy near the end of the year, but honestly, if you had just pulled Broly, you were honestly good up until the anniversary. And talking about the anniversary, yeah, this is what I'll be covering in the next Legends history video, if it ever sees the light of day, as honestly this kind of video format is pretty niche, and I don't really see any like growth potential from it. Like, if I'm being honest, I really want to try and make this channel like profitable this upcoming year, and those videos are unfortunately just not it. But if they do numbers, I'll definitely continue the series. But if they don't, yeah, then I'm sorry to disappoint you guys, but we'll have to let it go. But yeah, that was about it for today. Thanks to everyone who supported and watched the series up until this point, and I'll hopefully catch you in the next video, whether it's a Legends History one or not. Take care, peace.